welcome to Tales in the Dark. I know many of you enjoy relaxing with these videos, so I recommend turning down the volume until my voice is barely audible. It'll make the experience even more soothing. Before you close your eyes, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and enjoy listening. Story 1. I was cleaning when I noticed at a door I had never seen before, tucked between the laundry room and the pantry. My stomach tightened. I had lived here for years. There had never been a door there. The air smelled stale, tinged with something sharp like old wood and varnish. My fingers hovered over the handle. If this room had always been here, why did I feel like something inside was waiting for me to open it? I stood frozen, my cleaning cloth still in hand, dust particles dancing in the afternoon light that filtered through the nearby window. The door was painted the same eggshell white as my walls, yet somehow it seemed darker, as if shadows clung to it more readily. The brass doorknob glinted, but not brightly. It had a dull patina suggesting years of use by hands that weren't mine. "This is ridiculous," I whispered to myself, my voice sounding strange in the silence. I must have walked past this door 1,000 times. But I hadn't. I knew every inch of my home, every creak in the floorboards, every small crack in the ceiling. This door was new, yet it looked aged, settled. I reached out and pressed my palm against the wood. It felt cold despite the warmth of the day, and beneath my fingers I could swear I felt a subtle vibration, like something humming on the other side. I took a photograph with my phone, thinking perhaps I needed proof, though for whom I wasn't sure. The image on my screen looked wrong. Somehow the door appeared blurrier than everything around it, as if it refused to be properly captured. That night I tried to sleep but couldn't. My bedroom felt different, angled wrongly, as if the dimensions of the house had shifted to accommodate this new space. I got up and walked back to the hallway, drawn to the door like a magnet. In the darkness, a thin line of pale light outlined its frame, light coming from somewhere inside a room that shouldn't exist. I told myself to be rational. Houses settle. Perhaps it was an old storage closet I had somehow overlooked, blocked by furniture that had been moved during previous cleaning. But deep down, I knew this wasn't true. The house had never had such a door, such a room. The next morning, I forced myself to turn the handle. It rotated smoothly, without resistance or sound. The door swung inward, revealing a small, square room with bare walls. No windows, yet somehow dimly lit. The floor was wooden, worn in a circular pattern at the center, as if someone had paced there for years. A single wooden chair faced the far wall, nothing else. The air inside was different, heavier, with a metallic tang that reminded me of pennies. I stepped inside, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room felt wrong in a way I couldn't articulate, not just because of its sudden appearance, but because standing inside it felt like standing inside a thought rather than a physical space. I touched one wall and recoiled. It wasn't cold exactly, but it felt like pressing against skin rather than plaster and wood. I backed toward the door, suddenly afraid it might close behind me, but it remained open, revealing the familiar hallway beyond. I began keeping notes, documenting everything about the room. Measurements showed it was 8 feet by 8 feet, though when I tried measuring again moments later, it seemed wider. I placed a thermometer inside. It read 10 degrees cooler than the rest of the house. I left a digital recorder running inside overnight, and in the morning found nothing but static, except for one moment where something that might have been a whisper emerged from the white noise. Friends visited, but none seemed to notice the door, their eyes sliding past it as if it weren't there. When I directly pointed it out, they looked confused, insisting it had always been part of the house. "Your linen closet," my oldest friend called it, though I had never stored linens there, and she had never seen me do so. The room began to change. Small alterations at first, scuff marks appearing on the walls, the chair moving slightly each day. Then one morning I found a small notebook on the chair. Its pages were blank except for a single line in handwriting identical to my own. "Do you remember yet?" I became obsessed. I installed a camera facing the room, determined to catch whatever or whoever was changing it. The footage showed nothing, just the empty room, the chair, the notebook, but during playback, I noticed moments where the video would jump slightly, frames missing, often just before new objects appeared. A child's drawing materialized on one wall, stick figures of a family. A small collection of stones arranged in a circle on the floor, a wind chime hanging from the ceiling, though there was no breeze to move it, yet occasionally its metal tubes would softly ring. Sleep became difficult. I would wake to the sound of footsteps coming from the room, but investigation revealed only emptiness. My dreams filled with images of the room expanding, growing, becoming a vast space where I wandered lost, calling out to someone just beyond my vision. I began sleeping in the living room, away from the hallway, but I could still feel the presence of the room pressing against my consciousness. My coworkers noticed my distraction, the dark circles under my eyes. I told my doctor about insomnia, but said nothing about the room. One evening, exhausted and frustrated, I decided to end it. I would board up the door, pretend it never existed. I gathered tools and wood from the hardware store, determined to seal away whatever nightmare was unfolding in my home. But as I approached with hammer in hand, I noticed writing appearing on the door itself, letters forming as if traced by an invisible finger. "Your memory protects you." I dropped the hammer, backing away. The words faded slowly, sinking into the wood grain until they disappeared entirely. That night, a new photograph appeared in the room, an old Polaroid showing me as a child, standing in front of the same house I now lived in. I had no memory of ever visiting this house as a child, let alone being photographed here. The back of the photo bore a message: "Before you forgot." My research began in earnest. County records, property histories, previous owners. Nothing unusual emerged except for a gap, a period of 2 years where ownership records seemed missing. I interviewed neighbors, some who had lived nearby for decades. An elderly woman 3 houses down looked at me strangely when I mentioned my address. "That poor family," she murmured before her daughter intervened, saying her mother confused easily these days. She hurried her mother inside, leaving me with more questions than answers. The room continued its slow transformation. A small bed appeared against one wall, child-sized, with a quilt I somehow recognized, though I couldn't place from where. The walls began to show wallpaper, in some patches faded yellow with a pattern of small blue birds, familiar, triggering flashes of memory that disappeared as quickly as they formed. I found myself drawn to the chair in the center of the room. Sitting in it felt both wrong and right, like returning to a childhood home now occupied by strangers. From this vantage point, the room seemed to shift, the walls breathing gently in and out as if alive, and always that persistent feeling that I was forgetting something vital, something just beyond my reach. One night, unable to sleep, I sat in the chair and closed my eyes. The subtle vibration I had felt in the walls seemed to travel up through the floor, through the chair, and into my body. My mind filled with fractured images, a child running, laughter, screams, smoke, and always the door. When I opened my eyes, the room had changed completely. The walls now fully covered in the bird wallpaper, the small bed made up with fresh linens. A toy box sat in one corner, and crayon drawings covered much of the wall space. I recognized my own childhood artwork drawings I had made, except I never remembered making them in this room, in this house. On the floor lay a small red ball. As I watched, it rolled slightly as if pushed by a small hand. The temperature dropped suddenly, my breath fogging in the air. The door behind me slammed shut. The wind chime rang wildly, though there was no wind, and I heard it a child's laughter, soft but unmistakable, coming from every direction at once. I stood, turning in a slow circle. "Who are you?" I whispered. The laughter stopped, replaced by a silence so complete it seemed to press against my eardrums. Then a voice, high and sweet but distorted, as if coming through water. "I'm you, the part you locked away." My head filled with a rushing sound, like waves crashing against rocks. Memories began to surface living in this house as a child, not just now as an adult. A fire in the night, being carried out by my father. My parents arguing about moving, about leaving it all behind. About me and how I had changed, how I refused to speak about what happened that night. I sank to my knees as the memories flooded back. This room had been mine once, before the fire damaged this part of the house, before it was sealed off during renovations, before my mind sealed away the trauma along with it. The room didn't suddenly appear, it had always been there, hidden behind walls of plaster and psychology, waiting to be rediscovered. "You remember now," the voice said, closer now, just behind me. I turned but saw nothing, yet I felt a presence, a pressure in the air where someone small might stand. "What happened to you?" I asked, though I feared I already knew the answer. The room seemed to darken, the air growing thicker. "Not what happened to me," the voice whispered, now directly in my ear. "What happened to us?" The wind chime shattered, pieces of metal falling to the floor like rain. The walls began to blacken at the edges, charring as if being consumed by invisible flames. I smelled smoke, thick and choking. I lunged for the door, but the handle burned my palm when I touched it. Trapped, I pressed myself against the wall as memories continued to surface. My childhood drawings weren't innocent, they depicted dark shapes, looming figures. The imaginary friend my parents had worried about, the night terrors, the whispering I claimed to hear from inside the walls. "We invited it in," the voice said, mournful now, "and it never left." The darkness gathering in the corners of the room began to take shape, something tall and thin and wrong, unfolding like a piece of origami in reverse. I could make out limbs too long, too jointed, and a face that wasn't a face at all, but rather an absence where features should be. "It was always here," I whispered, understanding finally dawning. "In the house, in me." "In us," the voice corrected, and I felt small fingers intertwine with mine, invisible but tangible. The figure continued to unfold, growing larger, nearly touching the ceiling now. My body felt rooted to the spot, unable to move as it extended what might have been an arm toward me. "What does it want?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The small hand in mine tightened its grip. "To finish what it started." The darkness surged forward, and I screamed a child's scream from an adult throat. The walls of the room cracked, plaster falling in chunks. The floor beneath me splintered, and for an instant I saw not wood but an abyss stretching down into nothing. Then everything stopped. The dark figure froze mid-motion. The destruction halted. In the sudden silence, I heard something new, a heartbeat, not my own, but in perfect synchronization with mine. "It can't finish unless we let it," the voice said. "I've been holding it back since that night, but I'm tired, so tired." I understood then this fragment of myself, this childhood trauma personified, had been fighting alone, sealed away with the horror that had nearly destroyed us once. The door appeared not because something wanted to get out, but because my fractured self couldn't hold it back alone anymore. The room began to repair itself, wounds closing, but differently now. The bird wallpaper gave way to plain walls. The child's bed morphed into a simple cot. The toys vanished. It was becoming a new space, neither my childhood room nor the empty chamber I'd first discovered. "We don't have to remember everything," the voice said, softer now, fading, "but we can't forget it exists." I felt the small hand slip from mine. The presence diminished, not gone but merging, returning to me after years of separation. The dark figure receded into the corners, diminished but not vanished, contained again, but now consciously, willingly. Now when I enter the room, it changes subtly each time, reflecting my mental state, my willingness to remember or forget. Some days it's nearly empty, just the chair and perhaps the wind chime softly singing. Other days, glimpses of childhood return, a toy here, a drawing there. And always in the corner, a shadow a bit too deep, a bit too shaped, watching and waiting. I've made my peace with it, this darkness that will always be part of me, part of this house. I understand now why I was drawn back here as an adult, why I bought this house without recognizing it. Some part of me always knew I needed to return, to reconcile, to remember. The door remains, no longer hidden but integrated into my daily life. My friends still don't notice it, their eyes sliding past, their minds protecting them from what they can't understand. That's fine. The room isn't for them. It's for me and for the small, frightened piece of myself that waited so long to be found again. We keep watch together now, neither fully remembering nor completely forgetting what lurks in the shadows of our shared mind, in the corners of a room that both did and didn't exist, inside a house that will always be more than just a structure. And we know with patient certainty that some doors once opened can never truly be closed again. Story 2, I was groggy when I stumbled into the bedroom, rubbing my eyes as I flicked on the light. My stomach lurched. The bed wasn't empty. There was someone under the covers, their body rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. The air smelled of laundry detergent and something bitter like burned fabric. My hands shook as I took a step forward. The shape under the blankets shifted, and then slowly it turned toward me. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The blanket slid down, revealing a face, my face staring back at me with my own eyes. My doppelganger smiled, an expression I'd never seen in the mirror, something unfamiliar wearing my skin. "You're home early," it said in my voice, but with an accent I couldn't place, a pronunciation that was slightly off, as if my vocal cords were being operated by someone who had only read about how humans speak. I backed away, my shoulder blades hitting the doorframe. My mind raced through explanations, exhaustion, hallucination, a vivid dream. The logical part of me insisted this couldn't be happening, yet here I was, watching myself sit up in my own bed. "Who are you?" I whispered, hoping my neighbors might hear if I needed to scream. My other self tilted its head, mirroring my own gesture of confusion. "I'm you," it replied simply. "I've been waiting." The room felt suddenly colder. The mirror on my dresser reflected both of us, identical down to the mole on my left cheek. But in the reflection, something was wrong with the other me. Its movements were delayed by a fraction of a second, like watching a video with the audio out of sync. "This isn't possible," I said, reaching for my phone. My fingers found nothing, my pockets were empty. Looking for this, my double held up my phone, displaying the lock screen photo of my childhood dog. I needed to make sure we wouldn't be interrupted. I considered running, but curiosity anchored me to the spot. "What do you want?" To show you something, it replied, standing up. We were the same height, wearing different clothes, but the same face. I've been watching you for a long time. The other me walked to my closet and opened it. Inside, where my clothes should have been, was a dark void. Not darkness, but an absence of anything recognizable. It was as if someone had cut a hole in reality, leaving a gap where closet space should be. "What is that?" I asked, both terrified and oddly fascinated. "The way through," my double answered. "I come from the other side." I knew I should run, call for help, do anything but stand there. Yet I found myself stepping closer, drawn to the impossibility before me. Within the void, I could make out faint movements, like currents in deep water. Sometimes the barriers between worlds grow thin, my doppelganger continued. I found a way to cross over and study you, to become you. Why? My voice was barely audible. Because we're curious about consciousness, about identity. It gestured to its my body. This form is just a vessel. I wanted to know what it feels like to be you. I reached out toward the void, stopping just short of touching it. A cold sensation radiated from the opening, like standing before an open freezer. "And what have you learned?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. My double smiled again, that unfamiliar expression on my familiar face. That humans are more complex than we thought. You feel so much all at once, it's overwhelming, magnificent. "We?" I asked. The others watching, they're waiting for my report. I noticed something then a subtle difference. The longer I looked at my double, the more I could see tiny imperfections in its recreation of me. Its skin was too smooth, lacking the fine lines around my eyes. Its pupils didn't dilate properly in response to the light, and when it breathed, its chest moved in a mechanical rhythm, too perfect to be natural. "What happens now?" I asked, aware that my fear was being replaced by an odd sense of acceptance. "Now I need to go back, but first," it reached out, touching my forehead with its fingertip. The contact sent a jolt through my body, an electric current racing from my head to my toes. Images flooded my mind, structures that defied physics, beings made of light and mathematical patterns, a world where consciousness was a commodity passed between entities like currency. I gasped, stumbling backward. "What did you do to me?" "Gave you a glimpse, a fair exchange for the experience you've given me." The room began to warp around us, the walls breathing like living tissue. The void in my closet expanded, growing hungry. My double stepped toward it, then paused and turned back to me. "They'll send another observer soon. Next time you might not notice the difference." With that, it stepped into the void, which folded in on itself like paper being crumpled. The closet returned to normal, my clothes hanging innocently as if nothing had happened. I stood alone in my bedroom, heart pounding. Had it all been real? The burning smell lingered, and when I checked my phone, now mysteriously back in my pocket, I found photos I didn't remember taking. Close-ups of my own eyes, my hands, my mouth. And text messages sent to unknown numbers, containing strings of symbols that looked like code. Sleep was impossible that night. I sat by the window, watching the street below, analyzing every passerby for signs of imperfection. I found myself studying my own reflection, searching for evidence that I was still me, that I hadn't been replaced without my knowledge. In the morning, I called in sick to work. I spent the day examining my apartment, looking for other portals or signs of intrusion. Everything seemed normal, yet nothing felt right. The world had shifted slightly, leaving me out of alignment with reality. A week passed, then another. I began to doubt my memory of that night, attributing it to stress or perhaps an undiagnosed condition. I made an appointment with a doctor but canceled at the last minute, afraid of what they might find or not find. The nightmares started next, dreams of being observed by countless eyes, of having my consciousness extracted and examined like a specimen. I would wake up gasping, certain that someone had been standing over my bed. I installed cameras throughout my apartment, but they never captured anything unusual. Just me, moving through my daily routine, occasionally staring off into space for minutes at a time with no memory of doing so. The headaches began soon after, splitting pain that would strike without warning, accompanied by flashes of those alien images my double had shown me. During these episodes, I would find myself writing strange symbols on whatever surface was available: paper, walls, my own skin. One morning I woke to find my bathroom mirror covered in these symbols, written in toothpaste. I had no recollection of doing it, but the toothpaste tube was empty in my hand. I began to wonder if I was the copy, not the original. Had my consciousness been duplicated? Was I the observer now, trapped in this human form, while my true self existed somewhere beyond that void? The thought terrified me at first, but gradually transformed into a strange comfort. If I wasn't entirely human, perhaps I could access knowledge beyond human limitations. During quiet moments, I would close my eyes and reach out with my mind, searching for that connection to the other side. And sometimes, in the space between thoughts, I would feel something respond, a presence acknowledging my call. I started experimenting. I discovered that when I focused intensely on an object, I could perceive aspects of it invisible to normal human senses. The history of a coffee mug, the emotional residue left on a book by previous readers, the microscopic communities living in the soil of my houseplants. My perception expanded, but so did my detachment from humanity. I found myself observing people rather than connecting with them, studying their behaviors with clinical interest. Friends noticed the change, commenting that I seemed different lately. If only they knew how right they were. The final transformation began when I noticed a new door in my apartment. It had always been there, physically a closet in the hallway, but now I could see it for what it truly was, another portal. Unlike the void from before, this one was subtle, disguised as ordinary reality, but leading somewhere else entirely. I stood before it for hours, debating whether to open it. Would I find answers on the other side, or just more questions? Would I encounter the being that had worn my face, or something else entirely? In the end, curiosity won. I turned the knob and stepped through. What I found was not another world, but a space between worlds, a nexus point where realities intersected. And there, waiting for me, were others like me, observers, researchers, entities studying the nature of consciousness across multiple planes of existence. They welcomed me not as a subject, but as a colleague who had finally awakened to their true nature. Your integration was successful, one told me, wearing a form that shifted between human and something else. The memory implantation worked better than expected. Memory implantation, I asked, suddenly uncertain. You volunteered, another explained. Don't you remember? You wanted to experience human consciousness from the inside, to live as one of them without knowing your true nature. Fragments of memory surfaced not from my human life, but from before. I remembered the preparation, the excitement of the experiment, the careful selection of the human subject whose identity I would assume. And the human, I asked, the original me, safely returned to their life with no memory of the exchange. They believe they experienced a vivid dream, nothing more. Relief washed over me, followed by a profound sense of understanding. I hadn't been the victim of an invasion. I had been the willing explorer all along. Now I had a choice: return to human life with my new awareness, or rejoin my kind as my true self. The decision wasn't difficult. I chose both. These days I live between worlds. To human eyes, I'm unchanged, perhaps a bit more introspective, a bit more observant. But in moments of quiet, when no one is watching, I can shift my perception and see the true nature of reality unfolding around me. And sometimes, when the barriers grow thin, I glimpse others like me walking among humans, conducting their own experiments, seeking their own understanding. If you've read this far, perhaps you should ask yourself, how sure are you of your own identity? How certain are you that your consciousness is entirely your own? Look in the mirror tonight. Watch carefully for any delay in your reflection. Listen for thoughts that don't quite feel like yours. And if you notice something watching you from behind your own eyes, well, now you know why. Story 3. I was home alone, scrolling through my phone when I heard it. My name, clear, distinct, drifting in through the open window. My stomach twisted. The air smelled damp, tinged with the scent of wet pavement and something metallic. Slowly I walked to the window and peered outside. The yard was empty. The street was quiet, but then from just beyond the tree line, my voice called again. Come outside. My phone slipped from my fingers. I blinked hard, convinced my mind was playing tricks. The voice was unmistakably mine, the same inflection, the same subtle rasp. A chill crept up my spine as I pressed my face against the cool glass, straining to see into the darkness between the trees. Nothing moved, nothing breathed, yet something felt wrong about the shadows. They seemed too dense, too purposeful. I backed away from the window, drawing the curtains closed with trembling hands. That night, sleep evaded me. Every creak of the house, every whisper of wind against the siding, sounded like my own voice calling. I wrapped myself in blankets despite the warmth of the room, creating a cocoon of false security. Morning arrived with merciful normalcy. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the curtains, painting stripes across my bedroom floor. I convinced myself the voice had been a dream, a product of exhaustion and an overactive imagination. The mirror in the bathroom revealed dark circles under my eyes. As I leaned closer to examine my tired face, the reflection blinked a millisecond before I did. I jerked backward, heart pounding. But when I looked again, the reflection behaved as it should, mimicking my movements with perfect synchronicity. I made coffee, its rich aroma filling the kitchen, grounding me in routine. My phone contained nothing unusual, no mysterious calls, no unexplained messages, just the ordinary digital detritus of modern life. Relief washed over me. Whatever strange phenomenon had occurred last night hadn't followed me into daylight. Then I found the notebook. It sat on my desk, unremarkable, bound in plain black leather. I didn't remember owning such a thing. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. Page after page filled with my handwriting, but not my words. Notes about stars aligning, about thin places between worlds, about voices that call from beyond veils most never notice. The final entry dated yesterday. Tonight I will call. Tonight I will beckon. Tonight I will begin to cross. I slammed the notebook shut, heart hammering against my ribs. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. I photographed every page with shaking hands, documenting what I couldn't comprehend. Later, reviewing the photos, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. The images showed blank pages, every single one. Yet when I opened the physical notebook again, the writing remained dark and unmistakable. That evening, as dusk gathered, I sealed every window, locked every door. I turned music on, loud enough to drown out any calling voices. The bass vibrated through the floorboards, creating a rhythmic pulse that matched my heartbeat. Despite my precautions, the voice returned. It whispered beneath the music, somehow audible despite the impossibility. "Let me in," it said, my voice, but not my voice. There was something wrong with the cadence, something off about the way it formed words, as if something else was wearing my voice like an ill-fitting suit. I increased the volume until the speakers distorted, until neighbors would surely complain. Still, the voice persisted. "I know you hear me," it said. "I know you feel me waiting." The wall near the window began to vibrate. Not from the music, this was different, a subtle tremor that intensified when I placed my palm against it. The surface felt warm, almost feverish. I grabbed my phone, recording the wall, the window, the sound of the music. Later, reviewing the footage, I would find nothing unusual, just empty rooms and normal walls. But in the moment, I felt it, something pressing from the other side. Sleep deprivation made reality elastic, days blurred together. I began to question my perception, my memory. Strange things happened that I couldn't explain. Objects moved when I wasn't looking. Food tasted wrong. Water ran black from the tap for brief moments before clearing. I started keeping a journal, documenting everything. But words written in the morning vanished by evening, replaced by messages I hadn't written. "Coming closer," one said, "the distance narrows." The mirrors became unreliable. Sometimes my reflection would simply watch me unmoving while I gestured frantically. Other times it would show me spaces behind me that didn't match reality, doorways where walls should be, windows that opened onto unfamiliar landscapes. I covered every reflective surface in the house. I stopped using my phone, afraid of what its black screen might reveal when powered down. I avoided puddles after rain, fearing what might look back at me from their depths. My voice continued calling night after night, sometimes questioning, sometimes pleading, sometimes demanding. "Let me in before it's too late," it begged one night. "You don't understand what waits between." I began to notice a pattern. The voice was strongest when stars shone brightest. On cloudy nights, it weakened to a whisper. On clear nights, it gained strength, substance, proximity. I found myself drawn to the window despite my fear, peering out at the starlight. The constellations seemed wrong somehow, arranged in patterns I didn't recognize. When I blinked, they briefly rearranged themselves into familiar formations before shifting back to their unsettling configurations. The smell came next, a pervasive odor of wet earth and decaying leaves, though the weather had been dry for weeks. It seemed strongest near the walls, as if something moldering pressed against the other side. I began to document everything with my camera. Most images showed nothing unusual, but occasionally peripheral details changed between shots. A chair moved slightly. A shadow lengthened impossibly. Once, reviewing images of my empty living room, I found myself standing in the corner of the frame, though I'd been behind the camera. The photograph showed me smiling in a way I never smile. My voice outside grew more insistent. "The door is forming," it said one night. "The path is opening. I need your invitation." I refused to respond, refused to acknowledge, but silence wasn't enough. The boundaries were thinning regardless of my participation. The next morning, I found muddy footprints in the hallway my gate, leading from the front door to my bedroom. The door remained locked, chains intact. I followed the prints backward, hoping to find where they originated, but they simply began midway across the threshold, as if whoever made them had materialized from thin air. That night, huddled in my bedroom, every light blazing, I heard footsteps in the hallway. My footsteps, my walking pattern. They stopped outside my door. The knob turned, but the lock held. "Let me in," my voice said, so close now, separated only by a thin wooden door. "You can't keep me outside forever." Something scratched at the door, not with claws or nails, but with fingers identical to mine. I knew this somehow, could feel phantom sensations in my own fingertips as they dragged across the wood. "What are you?" I finally asked. Silence followed, so complete it seemed to swallow all other sound. Then softly my voice replied, "I am you, the you that could have been, the you from the path not taken." "What do you want?" "To return, to rejoin, to make us whole again." A jolt of recognition shot through me. Memories surfaced, a decision made long ago, a moment when reality seemed to split. I had forgotten until now, had buried it beneath layers of mundane existence. "You chose wrong," my voice said. "You took the safe path, the small life. You left me stranded in between." The door bulged inward, wood creaking under impossible pressure. The air grew thick, hard to breathe. My ears popped as if the atmospheric pressure had suddenly changed. "If you won't invite me in," my voice said, "then I'll pull you out." The floor beneath me began to shift, to tilt. Gravity seemed to reorient itself. I clutched at the bed frame as the room spun around me. The ceiling became the floor, the walls became the ceiling. I was falling upward toward the door. With desperate strength, I fought against the pull, crawling across what had been the ceiling, now the floor. Pictures fell upward, shattering against the ceiling, now floor. Furniture shifted, sliding against the new gravitational pull. I reached the window, now positioned above me, and forced it open. Fresh air rushed in, momentarily clearing my head. Outside, the world remained normal. Houses stood right side up. Trees grew from the ground, not the sky. The decision crystallized in my mind. I could stay and face whatever was trying to enter, or I could flee into the night, perhaps never to return. As I hesitated, balanced on the window ledge, my voice called again, not from the hallway now, but from within my own head. "You can't escape me," it said. "I am always with you. I am the road not traveled, the life unlived. Every choice you make creates another me, waiting in the spaces between decisions." I jumped, the ground rushed up to meet me. Impact never came. Instead, I found myself standing in my yard, looking up at my house. All the lights were on inside, blazing against the darkness. Through the window of my bedroom, I could see a figure, myself, peering out at me. Our eyes met across the distance. Understanding passed between us. Neither of us was the original. Neither of us was the copy. We were both fragments of something once whole, now forever divided. The figure at the window raised a hand in recognition. I mirrored the gesture. For a moment, we were perfectly synchronized, two halves acknowledging each other across an unbridgeable divide. Then the figure turned away, back into the house that was no longer mine. The lights went out one by one until darkness reclaimed the building. I stood alone in the yard under stars that seemed both familiar and strange. The voice no longer called. The pull no longer tugged at me. Whatever door had opened between us had closed. But sometimes, walking past reflective surfaces, I catch glimpses of that other self living a different life behind the glass. And sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep claims me, I hear my own voice whispering from somewhere I cannot reach. Next time it says, next decision, I'll be waiting. And I know with absolute certainty that it speaks the truth. Story 4, at first I thought it was just a shadow, a smudge, but as I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling, my breath caught. The handprints were dark, uneven, pressed into the white paint too many to count, overlapping, stretching toward the corners of the room. The air smelled stale, thick with dust and something sickly sweet. My pulse pounded. There was no way to reach the ceiling, no way for anyone to leave those prints. But as I watched, one of them grew darker. I blinked hard, certain I was seeing things. My room remained unchanged, familiar furniture cast in blue darkness, the soft hum of the radiator, my phone charging on the nightstand, everything normal except what stretched above me. I switched on my bedside lamp. The prints remained stark against the white paint. Some were small, like a child's hand. Others were broader, adult-sized. All of them pressed flat, as if someone had been pushing against the ceiling from above. I took photos with my phone, the flash illuminating every detail. When I zoomed in, I noticed something I couldn't see with my naked eye: tiny ridges, fingerprints, each one unique, each one real. Sleep never came that night. I lay watching, cataloging every change. By morning, the prints had faded slightly, as if they were slowly drying. I convinced myself it was some strange water damage, a trick of shadow and light. The rational explanation was always there, waiting to comfort me. I went about my day, work meetings blurred together. I answered emails, attended conference calls, all while the image of those handprints hovered in the back of my mind. When I returned home, I expected, hoped they would be gone. They had multiplied. The ceiling was now covered, edge to edge, with overlapping impressions. Some were deeper than before, the paint bulging downward as if something heavy pressed against it from the other side. I stood on my bed, reaching up with my fingertips. The ceiling felt cool and solid, nothing out of the ordinary except for the slight indentations I could feel beneath my touch. That night I recorded everything. I set up my phone to capture time-lapse video of the ceiling. I took temperature readings of the room. I even pressed my ear against the wall, listening for any movement in the empty attic space above. Nothing. The recording showed nothing unusual, just the steady sailing, unchanging throughout the night. But when I woke and looked up, new prints had appeared directly above where I had slept, smaller this time, like the hands of a child. I brought in a ladder from the garage. Standing at the top rung, I pressed my palm against one of the prints. Mine was smaller, my fingers thinner. The impression was cold to the touch, almost damp, though nothing came away on my skin. I took a knife from the kitchen and carefully scraped at the paint. It was intact. The handprints weren't on the surface, they were pushing through from the other side. Sleep became impossible. Every night I watched the ceiling. Sometimes nothing would happen for hours. Then, without warning, I would see it, the slow, subtle bulge of the paint as an invisible hand pressed down. The ceiling never broke, never cracked, just these impressions, appearing one after another, as if a crowd gathered above me. I began documenting everything in a notebook, pages filled with observations, measurements, theories. I researched structural abnormalities, psychological conditions that might explain what I was seeing. Nothing fit. I invited a friend over. "Do you see anything strange about my ceiling?" I asked casually. She glanced up briefly. Number should I? I looked up with her. The handprints were there, clear as ever to me. "Nothing," I said, "just checking." That night I heard it for the first time. A soft, rhythmic tapping above me, not like footsteps, more deliberate, like fingers drumming. I stood on the bed, pressing my ear to the ceiling, following the sound as it moved across the room. When I touched the spot, my fingers met a handprint that felt warm. I wrote in my journal, "They're trying to communicate." I bought an infrared camera. The ceiling appeared normal through its lens, but when I reviewed the footage the next morning, there were cold spots, hand-shaped cold spots where the prints appeared most prominently. The tapping continued nightly now, sometimes slow and methodical, sometimes frantic. I began tapping back, developing a system. 1 tap for yes, 2 for no. I asked questions aloud. Are you trapped? 1 tap. Are you in danger? 1 tap. Can I help you? Silence. My dreams changed. I found myself floating upward, pressing against a barrier that gave slightly under my touch. Beyond it were shadowy figures reaching down. In these dreams, I understood what they wanted. They needed someone to pull them through, or perhaps they wanted to pull me up. I stopped leaving the house, called in sick to work. My focus narrowed to deciphering the patterns of the handprints, the meaning behind their arrangement. I mapped them on graph paper, assigning numbers to each one, looking for mathematical sequences. There was order there, I was certain, a message hidden in plain sight. One night, as rain lashed against the windows, the tapping became unbearable. Fast, desperate, I stood on the bed and shouted, "What do you want from me?" The ceiling bulged downward, the shape of a face pressing through the paint, not breaking it, but stretching it like fabric. I could make out eyes, a nose, a mouth open in a silent scream. Then it receded, leaving a new cluster of handprints in its wake. I began sleeping in the living room, but each morning I would return to my bedroom to find new prints had appeared. They were spreading now, creeping down the walls, always hands, always pressing from the other side. I considered moving out, but something kept me there. A growing certainty that whatever was happening was meant for me specifically, that it would follow me wherever I went. The night everything changed, I woke from a dream of falling. The air in the room felt thick, charged with electricity. I returned to my bedroom. I had to see if anything had changed. The handprints covered every surface, now ceiling, walls, even spreading onto the floor. As I stepped into the room, the air temperature dropped dramatically. My breath clouded in front of me. The tapping started again, but different this time. Organized, rhythmic, a pattern I recognized from my research Morse code. I grabbed my phone, recording the sounds, translating as it came. Open. Open what? I asked aloud. The tapping continued, more urgent. OPNYOURHIND. I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the phantom impressions of countless hands. Slowly, hesitantly, I raised my palm toward the ceiling. The room went silent. The air pressure changed, like the moment before a storm breaks. Then I felt it, a cold touch against my palm, not from above, but from all around me, as if I had reached through some invisible barrier and something on the other side had taken hold. I tried to pull away, but my hand would not move. My skin began to tingle, then burn. When I finally wrenched it free, my palm bore a mark, a perfect handprint, smaller than my own, burned into my skin like a brand. That night I understood. The handprints weren't reaching down. They were reaching up. Whatever lay beyond my ceiling wasn't above me. It was around me. I was the one trapped, pressing against the barriers of my own reality. Those hands belonged to people trying to pull me through, to wake me up. The handprint on my palm never faded. It burned constantly, a reminder. Sometimes, when the room is very quiet, I can hear the tapping start again. And if I place my marked hand against the wall, I can feel them on the other side, waiting. Every night more of them gather. Every night they press harder against the thinning barriers of this world. My world, which I'm beginning to understand, is not what I believed it to be. I've stopped trying to explain what's happening. Instead, I press my hand against the ceiling each night before sleeping, matching my palm to one of the countless impressions there, connecting. Whatever waits beyond wants me to join them, or perhaps they want to break through to where I am. Either way, the barrier between us grows weaker. I can feel it giving way, a little more each day. The handprints continue to spread through my home. I no longer document them, no longer question them. I simply watch as they multiply, covering every surface, reaching toward me. And sometimes now, when I press my marked palm against them, I feel something push back. Story 5. I had seen this picture 1,000 times, my parents, my sister, and me, smiling in front of our old house. But today, as I dusted the frame, my stomach lurched. There was a man standing behind us, distant, barely visible, his face obscured in shadow. The air smelled faintly of old paper and something bitter like ink. My hands trembled as I pulled the picture closer. I had never seen this man before, but somehow I had the awful feeling he had always been there. The photograph felt different in my hands, heavier, colder, as if the glass had absorbed the chill of a winter night. I placed it back on the mantel, trying to dismiss the unsettling discovery as a trick of light or a smudge on the glass. Yet my eyes kept returning to that shadowy figure, his presence both subtle and undeniable. That night, sleep eluded me. My mind raced with questions about the stranger. Had he been wandering through our yard when the photo was taken? Was he a neighbor I had forgotten? I convinced myself to check the other family albums the next morning, hoping for a rational explanation. The cabinet where we kept our photo albums creaked as I pulled it open. Dust particles danced in the morning light as I leafed through the first album. My breath caught in my throat. There he was again in a photo from my 5th birthday party, standing by the doorway, partially obscured by a curtain. My fingers traced the outline of his silhouette, and the glossy surface of the photo felt unnaturally cool against my skin. I flipped through more pages, my heart pounding harder with each turn. Beach vacations, holiday gatherings, school events. The stranger appeared in the background of photo after photo, always distant, always watching. Sometimes just a blur at the edge of the frame, other times clearly visible but never looking directly at the camera, never showing his face. My sister called that evening. We chatted about mundane things, her new job, the weather, plans for the weekend. Then, trying to sound casual, I asked if she remembered anyone unusual hanging around our family when we were growing up. "What do you mean by unusual?" she asked. I described the man in the photos, keeping my voice steady despite the knot forming in my stomach. "Are you feeling okay?" Concern laced her voice. "I can come over if you want company." "No, I'm fine," I lied. Just noticed someone in the background of some old pictures and wondered who it might be. After we hung up, I returned to the albums. This time I grabbed a notepad and began documenting each appearance of the stranger, when, where, how visible. As I worked, the room grew colder. The lamp beside me flickered, though the bulb was new. A soft scratching sound seemed to come from inside the walls. My documentation became obsessive. I pinned photos to my living room wall, connected them with red string, noting patterns and anomalies. The stranger appeared more frequently as the years progressed, gradually moving closer to my family in each image. In the most recent photos, he stood directly behind me, his hand almost touching my shoulder. I found myself staring at reflective surfaces, windows, mirrors, the black screen of my powered-off television, half expecting to see him standing behind me. Sometimes I caught glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision, only to turn and find nothing there. One night I woke to the sound of my printer running. I hadn't printed anything in weeks. Heart racing, I walked to my home office where the machine hummed softly in the darkness. A single sheet of paper sat in the output tray. With trembling fingers, I picked it up. It was a photo I had never seen before. My parents, my sister, and me, sitting at our old dining table. The stranger stood behind my chair, his hand resting on my shoulder, but this time his face was visible. I dropped the paper, recoiling as if burned. The face looking back at me was my own, older, harder, with empty eyes that seemed to hold something ancient and malevolent. The skin around my mouth stretched into a smile that wasn't quite right, as if drawn by someone who had only heard descriptions of human expressions. My reflection in the window caught my attention. For a moment, just a moment, I saw two versions of myself. One was me, pale and frightened. The other stood slightly behind, wearing that same wrong smile. I destroyed the albums that night, tore out every photo, shredded them into confetti. The entire time my hands felt numb, disconnected from my body. When I finally stopped, exhausted, I realized my mistake. The documentation on my wall remained intact, dozens of images showing the progression of the stranger moving closer to me through the years. As I stared at the display, a new pattern emerged. In the earliest photos where the stranger first appeared, I was always smiling. In later images, as he moved closer, my smile gradually faded. In the most recent pictures, I wasn't smiling at all. My expression had become blank, my eyes distant, while everyone else in my family continued to beam at the camera. I began to wonder if my family had noticed the change in me, if they had seen something happen to me over the years, something so gradual they never thought to question it. Or perhaps they had questioned it all those times my mother asked if I was feeling well, when my father suggested I seemed different somehow. The next morning I called my mother. Her voice sounded distant, cautious. I asked her to send me digital copies of our old family photos, claiming mine were damaged in a water leak. She agreed reluctantly, her voice tinged with worry. Hours later, my phone chimed with a notification. She had shared an album with me. With unsteady hands, I opened the first image. My heart stopped. In these photos, there was no stranger. Instead, I saw myself changing through the years, my smile growing colder, my posture more rigid, my eyes increasingly vacant. In the final photo, taken just last year at a family gathering, I stood slightly apart from everyone else. My face was partially turned away from the camera, caught in a moment where I thought no one was watching. The expression captured there wasn't mine. It belonged to someone else entirely, someone who had been watching my family for years. That night I avoided mirrors and reflective surfaces. I unplugged every device with a screen. I sat in darkness, listening to the house settle around me. Occasionally I heard soft footsteps echoing my own, stopping when I stopped, moving when I moved. I think about that first photo often now. The stranger had always been there, watching and waiting, not in the background of my family photos, but inside me, gradually taking up more space. I wonder when it began, this slow replacement. I wonder how much of me remains. Sometimes I catch myself standing in front of mirrors, studying my reflection for minutes, hours. My smile doesn't quite reach my eyes anymore. My movements feel rehearsed, as if I'm learning how to be human by watching others. The stranger doesn't hide in my photos anymore. He doesn't need to. Story 6, I never went down there. The basement was always dark, the air thick with dust and the scent of damp concrete. But tonight, as I passed the door, my stomach twisted. The light was on. My breath came in short bursts. The bulb had been burned out for months. I reached for the handle, heart hammering. From the other side, something shifted. My fingers trembled against the cold metal of the doorknob. Logic dictated a simple explanation, a faulty circuit, perhaps, or a memory failure on my part. Maybe I had replaced the bulb and forgotten, but deep down I knew better. The basement had remained untouched since we moved in. The previous owners had left in a hurry, leaving behind odd trinkets and furniture I'd never bothered to sort through. I paused, listening. The house settled around me with familiar creaks and groans, but beneath those sounds, something else stirred, a faint rustling, like paper being slowly crumpled. My throat constricted. I should walk away, call someone, pretend I hadn't noticed. Instead, I twisted the knob and pulled. The door resisted, then gave way with a long, drawn-out whine. A wave of cool air washed over me, carrying with it a sharp, metallic smell that hadn't been there before. The wooden steps descended into the basement, illuminated by the naked bulb that hung from the ceiling, the same bulb I'd tried to replace before discovering the fixture itself was broken. Yet there it was, casting a sickly yellow glow across the concrete floor below. "Hello," my voice sounded foreign, as if it belonged to someone else. No response came, but the rustling intensified. I took a tentative step down, the wood groaning beneath my weight, then another. The sound seemed to retreat as I advanced, moving deeper into the shadows that the light couldn't reach. The basement was larger than I remembered. Cardboard boxes formed uneven towers along the walls, their contents unknown to me. A sheet-covered shape in the corner might have been a desk or an old cabinet. The air felt heavy against my skin, almost resistant, as if the basement itself objected to my presence. I reached the bottom of the stairs and paused, allowing my eyes to adjust to the dim light. The rustling had stopped. Now only silence filled the space, a silence so complete it seemed to have physical substance. I moved toward the light switch, intending to confirm my suspicion that it was still in the off position. My fingers brushed against the wall, searching for the switch. When I found it, my breath caught in my throat. The switch was down, off, yet the light continued to burn above me. Something cold touched the back of my neck, a draft, surely. I spun around, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Nothing was there, just shadows and dust and forgotten things. I turned back to the light switch and flipped it up, then down again. The light remained unchanged, neither brightening nor dimming. I tried once more, applying more force, the plastic digging into my finger. Still nothing. That's when I noticed the writing on the wall beside the switch. Small, precise letters scratched into the paint. "We see you now." My skin prickled. Those words hadn't been there when I'd last attempted to fix the light. I was certain of it. I backed away, bumping into one of the cardboard towers. It swayed dangerously but didn't fall. The rustling sound returned, louder now, coming from behind the sheet-covered shape in the corner. I should have run then, should have climbed those stairs and never looked back. Instead, I found myself moving toward it, drawn by a curiosity I couldn't explain. My hand reached out, gripped the dusty sheet, and pulled. Nothing could have prepared me for what I uncovered. Not a desk or cabinet, but a mirror tall and ornate, its frame carved with intricate patterns that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. The glass was cloudy, distorting my reflection into something unrecognizable. As I stared, the image cleared, revealing not my face, but a room that mirrored my basement, yet wasn't quite the same. The boxes were arranged differently, the walls covered in those same small, precise letters. And standing in the center of that other room was a figure with my face, watching me with eyes that weren't my own. I stumbled backward, my heel catching on something soft. I fell, landing hard on the concrete floor. The impact sent a jolt through my body, but it was nothing compared to the shock of seeing what I'd tripped over, a small, leather-bound book that hadn't been there moments before. With trembling hands, I picked it up. The cover was warm to the touch, uncomfortably so, as if it had just been held. I opened it to find pages filled with the same handwriting as the wall. Day 37, the light works now. I can see everything. They're watching. Day 42, the mirror shows the truth. They're getting closer. Day 45, I think I've figured it out. The basement isn't just a room, it's a door. Day 46, they're here. The final entry was dated with today's date, in handwriting that matched my own. I dropped the book as if it had burned me. The light flickered overhead, casting wild shadows across the walls. The rustling sound had grown to a crescendo, no longer like paper, but like thousands of whispered voices speaking at once. The mirror's surface rippled like disturbed water. The figure on the other side, the one wearing my face, pressed its hands against the glass. Its mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear but somehow understood. Let me in. I scrambled to my feet, backing away until I hit the stairs. The light bulb flickered faster now, the whispers growing louder with each flash. The figure in the mirror stepped forward, its hands pressing harder against the glass, which bulged outward impossibly. I turned and ran, taking the stairs two at a time. Behind me, the sound of breaking glass cut through the whispers. Something cold brushed against my ankle, trying to gain purchase. I kicked wildly, connecting with nothing solid, and continued my desperate climb. At the top, I slammed the door shut and turned the lock. For a moment, everything was silent. Then came a gentle knock from the other side. My legs gave out and I slid to the floor, back pressed against the door. The knocking continued, patient and persistent. Then a voice, my voice, but not quite, spoke through the wood. I know you're there, I can feel you, let me in. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the voice seemed to come from inside my head now. It's too late anyway, the door is open, not this door, the other one. The knocking stopped, the voice fell silent. Gradually my breathing steadied. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. Eventually I found the courage to stand. That's when I noticed it, a thin line of yellow light seeping from beneath the door. The basement light was still on, still impossible. I haven't opened that door again. I sleep in my car now or at friends' houses making excuses about renovations. But I know I can't stay away forever. Each night I drive past my house, and each night more lights are on lights I know I didn't leave on. Soon, every window will be glowing. Sometimes when I catch my reflection in a store window or my car's rearview mirror, I see something wrong with my eyes. They're slightly darker, slightly wider than they should be. And sometimes, just sometimes, I think I see my reflection smile at me when I'm not smiling. The thing that terrifies me most isn't the basement or the mirror or even the figure that came through it. What terrifies me is the growing suspicion that I didn't escape that night. What terrifies me is the possibility that I'm not me anymore, that I'm the thing that was trapped in the mirror, while the real me remains trapped in the basement, knocking on a door that will never open. And sometimes, in the quiet darkness just before dawn, I find myself wondering, what if I went back? What if I opened the door? What if I let myself in? Story 7. I was getting ready for bed, my bedside lamp casting soft light across the walls. But as I pulled back the blankets, my stomach lurched. There was an extra shadow. It stretched along the floor, reaching toward the corner, tall, unmoving, standing where no one should have been. The air smelled faintly of lavender and something sharper, almost metallic. I turned quickly, expecting to see someone, but the room was empty, and yet in the mirror the shadow remained. I blinked hard, convinced my tired mind was playing tricks. Working late nights had been taking its toll. But when I looked again, that dark silhouette still loomed, a perfect cutout against my pale wall. The shadow had no owner, no explanation. My heart raced as I reached for my phone, snapping a quick photo. The screen showed exactly what my eyes couldn't accept: a human-shaped darkness where nothing stood. The first night I slept with all the lights on, convincing myself it was stress or perhaps a strange optical illusion. By morning, the shadow had vanished, and I almost believed I'd imagined it. Almost. When darkness fell again, I prepared differently. I set up my laptop camera to record the room. I arranged my furniture to eliminate odd angles. I even measured the distance between my lamp and the wall, ensuring no object could cast such a shape. My preparations felt ridiculous in daylight, but as night deepened, my certainty grew. The shadow returned as I was brushing my teeth. This time it appeared in the bathroom mirror, standing behind me. I froze, toothbrush suspended. The shadow mimicked my stillness, but its proportions were wrong: too tall, arms too long, head slightly misshapen. I slowly raised my left hand. The shadow raised its right. When I turned around, the bathroom was empty, but the reflection showed us both. My recording caught nothing but an empty room. The camera showed no intruder, no shadow without a source, but I knew what I'd seen. The next morning, I woke to find my toothbrush on the wrong side of the sink and water droplets on the floor, forming a pattern of footprints too large to be mine. I began documenting everything. A journal tracked each appearance, each small disturbance. Notes detailed the subtle changes in my environment, books rearranged, food in the refrigerator shifted, doors I swore I'd closed standing open. The shadow never appeared during daylight hours, but darkness brought it creeping back, always just at the edge of my vision. "You're becoming paranoid," my friend said over the phone when I tried to explain. "Maybe you should talk to someone professional." Perhaps she was right, but that night, as I sat in my living room, deliberately keeping my back to the hallway mirror, I heard her voice again. "Are you still there?" she asked, though my phone sat untouched on the coffee table. My skin prickled. The voice came from behind me near the mirror. I remained frozen, unable to turn around. "I see you," the voice whispered, no longer sounding quite like my friend. I stood up slowly, every muscle tense. The air felt thick, resistant. The smell of lavender intensified, mingling with that metallic undertone. When I finally turned, the mirror showed my reflection, but behind it stood the shadow, now with discernible features forming within its darkness. That night I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against the wall, facing the mirror I'd covered with a blanket. The fabric moved occasionally, as if something behind it was breathing. I recorded audio on my phone, capturing nothing but static and occasionally what sounded like my own voice whispering words I never spoke. The next day I removed all mirrors from my home. I covered reflective surfaces with paper and cloth. I changed my light bulbs, rearranged furniture, and even painted one wall a different color. None of it mattered. The shadow learned to appear in windows, in the blank screen of my television, in the reflective surface of my microwave door. It began to move things while I watched, a cup sliding across the counter, the refrigerator door opening a crack, my journal pages turning by themselves, each event small, almost dismissible, but undeniably real. I started leaving my home during the day, spending hours in crowded places, surrounded by people. but each return brought fresh evidence of intrusion, my belongings subtly rearranged, my journal entries annotated with handwriting similar to my own, but not quite right. The breaking point came when I found my bathroom mirror uncovered, though I'd taped a sheet over it the night before. The sheet lay neatly folded on the counter. The mirror showed my reflection, tired and haggard, but as I watched, my reflection smiled while I remained still. Then it reached toward the glass, pressing its palm against the surface from the other side. I packed a bag and fled to a small rental cabin in the woods. No mirrors, no televisions, no modern conveniences, just wood walls and windows looking out onto dense forest. For 2 nights I slept peacefully, believing I'd left the shadow behind. On the 3rd night, during a storm, the power failed. I lit candles, their weak light creating dancing shadows across the cabin walls. Relief washed over me when I realized none of the shadows resembled the one that had haunted me. But as I settled into the armchair with a book, I noticed something odd about the window. With the interior lit by candles and the exterior pitch black, the glass had become a perfect mirror. And there, standing behind my reflection, was the shadow. This time it moved first. It stepped closer to my reflection, leaning down as if to whisper in my ear. I couldn't hear its words, but I felt them, a cold vibration against my skin, a pressure in my mind. I knocked over the candles as I stumbled backward, plunging the cabin into darkness. The smell of smoke mingled with lavender and metal. When I managed to relight one candle, I found myself alone again. But on the window, finger marks streaked the glass from the inside, spelling out words I couldn't bring myself to read. That night I felt it watching me from every dark corner. The candle burned low, and I fought to stay awake, knowing something waited for me in sleep. When exhaustion finally won, I dreamed of walking through an endless corridor of mirrors, each reflection showing me standing still while the shadow moved independently, reaching out, getting closer with each mirror I passed. I woke to find my hand pressed against the cold window glass, my fingers aligned perfectly with the marks from the night before. Outside, the sun rose over the trees, bathing the world in normal light, but I knew the shadow would return with darkness. In daylight, I examined the finger marks on the window. They formed words I now allowed myself to read. Let me in. I spent the day preparing. I covered the windows with the sheets from my bed. I gathered every light source in the cabin. I even broke a piece of glass to use as protection, though against what I wasn't sure. As dusk approached, I started my voice recorder and spoke clearly. I know you're here. I know you're watching. What do you want? The recorder captured only static when I played it back, but when I listened closely, beneath the white noise, I heard a whisper to switch places. Night fell, the cabin grew cold despite the fire I built. The sheets covering the windows moved slightly, as if someone outside was running their hands along the glass. I sat in the center of the room, surrounded by lights, clutching my makeshift glass weapon. The fire died suddenly, plunging the cabin into darkness. My electric lights flickered and failed. Even my phone screen went black. In the perfect dark, I felt it enter not from outside, but from within the shadows themselves. The lavender smell became overwhelming. The metallic scent revealed itself as blood. My blood, I realized, as I felt a warm trickle from my nose. My phone screen lit up on its own, providing just enough light to see my reflection in the black window where a sheet had fallen. The shadow stood beside me now, no longer behind my reflection, but beside my physical self. I could feel its cold presence against my skin. I raised my hand, both my reflection and the shadow raised theirs. I wiped my bleeding nose. Only my reflection mimicked me. The shadow remained still. "What are you?" I whispered. The shadow leaned closer, its featureless face near my ear. In a voice that was mine but hollow, it said, "I am you from the other side." I felt something cold pierce my thoughts, a foreign presence seeping into my mind. My limbs grew heavy. The shadow and I moved in perfect unison now, but I no longer controlled my movements. The world tilted, the cabin spun around me. I felt myself falling, but my body remained upright. The shadow and I faced each other. Neither of us reflected in anything now. We existed in the same space, overlapping. "Thank you for letting me in," it said with my voice. "Your turn to be the shadow." Morning came. I opened my eyes and stretched, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The cabin looked different, somehow brighter, clearer. I caught sight of my reflection in the window and smiled, my smile. As I packed my bags to return home, I noticed a dark spot at the edge of my vision. When I turned to look directly at it, it vanished, only to reappear when I looked away, a shadow without a source. I smiled again, wider this time. "Your turn," I whispered to the darkness that followed me out of the cabin. It's been weeks since I returned home. I've rehung all the mirrors. I've invited friends over who comment on how well I look, how my eyes seem brighter. At night, I sometimes catch glimpses of a figure in the corner of rooms, a darker patch of shadow that moves when I'm not looking directly at it. I hear it sometimes, whispering my name in my former voice. I feel it watching me from the mirrors, from the windows, from the darkness under my bed. It's learning what I learned, that shadows cannot interact with the physical world, that shadows can only watch as someone else lives their life. But I know something it doesn't yet understand. Each night, the boundary between us grows thinner. Each night, I let it get a little closer, let it think it's finding a way back. Because crossing over once was difficult, crossing back will be impossible. Unless, of course, I help it along, unless I find another to take my place as it found me. I've been watching my neighbor through their window. They live alone, just as I did. They've started to notice things moved in their apartment. They've begun to look over their shoulder at nothing. They just need a little push, a shadow without a source, a reflection that moves on its own. And I know exactly how to give them that gift. Story 8. I had just locked up for the night, double-checking every door and window. The house was quiet, safe. But as I settled onto the couch, a knock echoed through the hallway. My stomach clenched. The air smelled of old wood and something faintly sour like damp fabric. The knock came again, slow, deliberate. It was coming from the other side of the front door, the side that should have been inside. My first instinct was to rationalize. Perhaps it was just the house settling, an old pipe contracting in the cold night air. But then it came again, 3 distinct knocks, evenly spaced, with the unmistakable sound of knuckles against wood. I stood frozen, my breath shallow, as if breathing too loudly might alert whatever waited on the other side of that door. The television flickered, casting distorted shadows across the living room. I noticed my reflection in the black screen during moments of darkness, but something seemed off about it. My movements weren't quite synchronized with my body. The reflection's head tilted slightly before mine did. I forced myself to approach the door, each step on the hardwood floor feeling unnaturally loud. The knocking had stopped, but I could sense a presence waiting. The peephole, which should have shown my empty hallway, revealed only darkness when I leaned in to look. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice sounding strange in my ears, as if it were coming from somewhere else in the house. No answer came, just silence, heavy and oppressive. I placed my palm against the door, immediately recoiling at the sensation. It was warm, too warm, and seemed to pulse slightly beneath my touch. The wood grain felt wrong, almost like skin. My phone sat on the coffee table, and I reached for it, needing to document this, to prove to myself later that this was real. The camera app opened, but when I pointed it at the door, the screen displayed only static. I tried recording audio instead, and though the recording appeared to work, when I played it back, I heard only a low, continuous hum punctuated by what sounded like whispers buried beneath layers of noise. That night I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against the bedroom wall, facing the closed bedroom door. Occasionally I heard soft footsteps in the hallway, moving from one end to the other, always stopping just outside my room before continuing on. In the morning light, I convinced myself it had been my imagination, stress from work perhaps. Maybe I'd been half asleep on the couch, dreaming the whole thing. But as I made coffee, I noticed small, darkened spots on the inside of the front door, perfect circles arranged in a triangle, precisely where knuckles would have struck. I took photos of the marks, but when I reviewed them later, the spots weren't visible in the images. That evening, I invited a friend over, seeking both comfort and confirmation. As we talked, I noticed her gaze occasionally flicking to something behind me, though she said nothing. When she left, she hugged me tighter than usual, whispering, "Call me if you need anything." Her expression held concern she couldn't disguise. Night fell, and with it came the knocking again. This time, it wasn't just at the front door. It came from the bathroom door, from the closet, from the kitchen cabinets. Each knock perfectly timed, as if multiple hands were working in coordination. I began documenting everything. I set up audio recorders in different rooms, placed notepads near doors to detect movement, and even spread talcum powder along the hallway floor to capture footprints. My rational mind was desperate for evidence, for something tangible to either confirm my fears or disprove them. The knocking became a nightly occurrence. Sometimes it would stop if I acknowledged it, other times it would intensify if I drew near. I started to notice other changes in the house. The temperature would drop suddenly in rooms I was about to enter. Lights would dim when I focused on them. The tap water ran cloudy for several seconds before clearing. One night I woke to the sound of paper rustling. My investigation journal lay open on my desk, pages turning by themselves. I watched, paralyzed, as an invisible force flipped through the pages, stopping at my most recent entry. When I finally gathered the courage to approach, I found new writing on the page, words I didn't remember recording, in handwriting almost identical to mine, but with subtle differences. The letters slanted slightly more, pressed deeper into the paper. "I'm still here," it read. I began to question my sanity. Was I writing these notes myself, somehow forgetting? Was I knocking on my own doors in some dissociative state? I set up a camera to record myself sleeping, but each morning the footage showed only static during the precise moments when the knocking occurred. The boundaries between reality and whatever was happening began to blur. I found myself standing in rooms with no memory of entering them. Objects weren't where I'd left them. The mirror in the bathroom showed my reflection with a slight delay, as if it were considering how to respond to my movements. My friend stopped returning my calls after her visit. When I finally reached her, she sounded distant, uncomfortable. "I think you should talk to someone," she said, "a professional." Perhaps she was right, but what would I say? That my house was knocking from the inside, that my reflection was becoming autonomous, that something was writing in my journal using my hand. The knocking intensified. It became a constant, rhythmic presence, like a heartbeat within the walls. I began to notice patterns. It grew stronger when I was afraid, weaker when I was calm. It responded to my emotions. One night, desperate for answers, I pressed my ear against the front door during a particularly intense series of knocks. The sound was clearer than ever, each knock sending vibrations through my skull. Then beneath the knocking, I heard something else breathing. Slow, measured breathing, perfectly matching my own. I jerked away from the door, heart pounding. As I stepped back, my foot caught on the edge of the rug, sending me sprawling backward. I hit my head on the coffee table, and for a moment, everything went dark. When consciousness returned, something had changed. The knocking had stopped. The house was silent in a way it hadn't been for weeks. I touched the back of my head, finding a small, tender lump but no blood. Rising shakily to my feet, I noticed the front door was ajar open, just a crack, darkness visible through the gap. I hadn't opened it. I was certain of that. With trembling hands, I approached the door. The gap widened slightly as I drew near, as if inviting me to look through. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I peered through the opening. I saw myself standing in the hallway, staring back with eyes that held no recognition. Not a reflection, another me, perfectly identical but separate. We regarded each other for what felt like forever. Then slowly, the other me raised a hand and knocked on the door between us, 3 times, slow, deliberate. I slammed the door shut, throwing my weight against it, fumbling with the lock. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the deadbolt. When it finally clicked into place, I collapsed against the door, sliding down until I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest. The knocking didn't resume that night, nor the next. The house fell silent, returned to normal. The strange marks on the doors faded. My reflection behaved as it should. I almost convinced myself it had all been a nightmare, a stress-induced hallucination. Almost. Because now when I lock up at night, checking every door and window, I can't shake the feeling that I'm not keeping something out, but keeping something in. And sometimes, catching my reflection in a darkened window or mirror, I notice a slight hesitation in its movements, as if it's deciding whether to follow me or not. I still live in this house, I still sleep in this bed, I still write in my journal. But every night before I turn off the lights, I watch my hands very carefully, wondering if they're truly mine or if they belong to whatever waits on the other side of the door. And I wonder if I knocked, would I hear myself answer? Story 9, I kept seeing him, just barely. A figure standing at the edge of my vision, always where I wasn't looking, directly beside the fridge, in the bathroom mirror, across the street as I drove home. The air smelled damp, heavy, like rain-soaked pavement. My breath caught every time I turned my head, expecting to find nothing. But tonight, as I reached for the light switch, my fingers stopped cold. His reflection was still there. He didn't vanish when I looked directly at the mirror. I blinked hard, convinced my mind was playing tricks. The figure remained motionless in the corner of the glass, a silhouette of a man with no distinguishable features except his unnaturally straight posture. My bathroom suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing inward with each shallow breath I took. I reached for my phone on the sink counter, never taking my eyes off the mirror. My trembling fingers fumbled for the camera. When I looked at the screen to frame the shot, the reflection showed only me wild-eyed and pale. But when I lowered the phone, he had returned to the same corner of the mirror. That night I slept with all the lights on, radio humming quietly beside my bed. Sleep came in fractured intervals, my consciousness repeatedly jolted awake by the sensation of being watched. In the soft glow of my bedside lamp, the shadows seemed deeper than normal, stretching across the ceiling in patterns that didn't match the objects casting them. Morning brought temporary relief. Sunlight poured through my windows, banishing the dark corners where my imagination had run wild. I made coffee, convincing myself the previous night had been nothing more than exhaustion combined with an overactive mind. The rational explanation felt comforting as I sipped from my mug. The normalcy lasted precisely until I checked my phone. The photo gallery contained images I didn't remember taking, dozens of them, all from inside my apartment. Most were tilted at odd angles or slightly blurred, as if captured while moving. In each one, a dark smudge appeared in the same position, always just at the frame's edge. I began documenting everything. In my notes app, I created a detailed log of each sighting, including what I was doing, where I was looking, and any unusual sensations that accompanied them. The documentation became my anchor to reality, something concrete I could point to when doubt crept in. The figure gradually became bolder. What started as a peripheral presence evolved into something more substantial. I caught glimpses of him standing in doorways before disappearing when I approached. The air would grow noticeably colder in spaces he had occupied moments before. My journal entries grew increasingly frantic. Day 5, he stands closer now. Sometimes I feel breath on the back of my neck when I'm alone. The smell of wet earth follows him. Day 8 found handprints on bathroom mirror this morning. Too large to be mine. Tried to photograph them, but they didn't appear in images. Day 12 woke to find all kitchen cabinets open, every single one. The digital recorder I left running overnight picked up footsteps between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. I was in bed. I began leaving voice recordings running throughout my apartment. Most captured nothing unusual, just the ambient sounds of my living space. But occasionally, beneath the white noise of my refrigerator or heating system, something else emerged, whispers so faint I had to use audio enhancement software to hear them. The words were never quite clear enough to understand, but the cadence suggested communication deliberate and directed at me. I played the recordings for a friend who visited, but she heard nothing beyond static and household noises. Her concerned expression told me she was worried about my mental state more than any supposed presence in my home. I stopped telling people about my experiences after that. Instead, I focused on gathering evidence. I set up motion-activated cameras in each room, positioned mirrors to eliminate blind spots, and kept detailed notes of temperature fluctuations throughout my apartment. The cameras captured nothing conclusive, just occasional unexplained shadows or pixelated distortions that could be attributed to technical glitches. But my mirror system proved more revealing. Twice I caught sight of him in multiple reflections simultaneously, confirming he wasn't just following my gaze, but existed independently in the space. The most unsettling development came when I found a notebook on my desk that wasn't mine. The leather cover felt unnaturally cold to the touch, its pages filled with writing that resembled my own handwriting, but with subtle differences, the loops more angular, the pressure heavier on downstrokes. The entries described watching someone sleep, cataloging their movements and breathing patterns with clinical precision. The final entry simply read, "Soon we will meet properly." Sleep became nearly impossible. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, afraid to close my eyes. When exhaustion finally pulled me under, my dreams were invaded by corridors of mirrors where I chased a retreating figure who always remained just out of reach. I began to notice changes in myself. My reflection looked increasingly unfamiliar, subtle shifts in expression that didn't match what I felt, a slight delay between my movements and those of my mirrored self. Sometimes I caught my reflection staring back at me with an intensity I wasn't feeling. The boundaries between observer and observed blurred further when I found myself standing before the bathroom mirror without remembering how I got there. My hand was raised, fingertips pressed against the cool glass surface. On the other side, my reflection had both arms at its sides. I jerked my hand away from the mirror. My reflection did the same, a fraction of a second too late. That night, desperate for answers, I set up my phone to record myself sleeping. The resulting video showed me lying motionless for hours, but around midnight, my body sat upright with mechanical precision. My eyes remained closed as I turned my head slowly, methodically, scanning the darkness as if searching for something. Then my lips moved, forming words in silent conversation with an unseen listener. I watched the footage repeatedly, trying to read my own lips. The only phrase I could decipher with any certainty was, "He's almost ready." The next evening I sat before my bathroom mirror, waiting. The lights dimmed without my touching the switch, casting the room in a gray twilight. In the mirror, the familiar figure appeared behind my reflection, more solid than ever before. I didn't turn around. Instead, I watched through the mirror as he approached, moving with unnatural smoothness until he stood directly behind me. My reflection shifted slightly to one side, making room for him in the frame. "Who are you?" I asked the mirror. My reflection smiled an expression I wasn't making. The figure behind me placed a hand on my reflection's shoulder. I felt nothing on my actual shoulder, yet watched as my mirror self leaned into the touch with familiar ease. "You've been watching me," my reflection said, mouth moving independently of my own. "But I've been watching you longer." Understanding dawned with cold clarity. I raised my hand. In the mirror, my reflection remained still. The figure behind my reflection moved closer, features becoming clearer, familiar features that I recognized as my own, but sharper, colder. "The boundary weakens," my reflection continued. "Soon there won't be glass between us." I pressed my palm against the mirror's surface. The glass felt soft, yielding like water. My reflection reached forward, our fingertips nearly touching through the thinning barrier. "We've always been the reflection," it said. "You just forgot which side of the mirror was real." The glass rippled between our almost touching hands. I felt a chill wash over me as the mirror's surface began to part like a curtain. My reflection's eyes gleamed with anticipation. I yanked my hand back and smashed the mirror with my fist. Pain lanced through my knuckles as blood and glass showered the sink. In the fractured pieces, countless versions of my face looked back, some smiling, some screaming silently. But the breaking of the mirror solved nothing. In each reflective shard, the figure remained multiplied now, watching me from dozens of angles. And in my peripheral vision, I sensed movement from behind. I won't turn around, not yet, but the sensation of breath on my neck grows stronger, and somewhere in this room, I hear paper rustling, the sound of someone turning pages in a journal. My hand throbs where I cut it on the mirror. The blood forms patterns on the white porcelain that seem almost like writing. I lean closer to read what it might say, knowing that behind me he does the same. He has always been there, watching from the corner of my eye, and now I understand why he looks so familiar. The glass crunches under my feet as I finally begin to turn around. Story 10. The heavy rain outside painted a mesmerizing picture on the roof, serenading me as I settled in for another solitary evening in my rustic country house. Each raindrop traced a delicate path down the window, weaving intricate patterns in the soft glow of candlelight that flickered against the encroaching darkness. The gentle breeze whispered through the trees in the garden, their leaves rustling in a soothing lullaby. Nestled in my beloved armchair, cradling a warm cup of tea, I found myself entranced by the tendrils of steam spiraling into the air. The familiar sounds of the house enveloped me, the subtle creak of aging wood, the rhythmic ticking of the pendulum clock in the entryway, the faint whistle of wind slipping through unseen crevices. All seemed ordinary, yet an unidentifiable sense of unease began to tinge the peaceful atmosphere of the evening. It was during a quiet sip of tea that my senses pricked up at a peculiar sight. In the mirror's reflection from the hallway, the window of the upstairs bedroom glowed with an eerie light, mimicking the flicker of a candle within. But I knew for certain that room lay shrouded in darkness. Setting down my cup, I rose slowly and made my way towards the staircase, the wooden steps protesting softly under my weight, a sound long familiar after years of residency. But on this night, each groan seemed to carry a different message, as if the very house sought to communicate with me. Ascending, the air grew colder, a thin veil of dampness clinging to the walls of the upper hallway. As I reached the bedroom door, a chill ran down my spine, causing a momentary hesitation before I turned the brass handle. Its icy touch sent a shiver through me. With a faint squeak, the door swung open, revealing the room cloaked in shadows. The window, the same one that had captured my attention in the mirror, remained shut. Yet to my astonishment, the lock began to shift on its own, as if guided by unseen hands. Slowly, inch by inch, the window glided open, devoid of any physical force behind its movement. The gentle breeze that wafted in did not account for the window's peculiar behavior, carrying with it a fragrant blend of dried flowers and ancient wood. I approached cautiously, watching raindrops pirouette into the room, forming delicate pools on the windowsill. And then a remarkable sight unfolded before me. The drops defied gravity, swirling in mesmerizing circles before alighting upon the floor. As I marveled at this inexplicable display, my attention was drawn to the glass of the window, where faint inscriptions began to materialize, as if an invisible hand traced cryptic letters in the mist. Straining to decipher the blurred words, my heart quickened its pace, matching the rhythm of the curtains that billowed gently as though stirred by a phantom breath. Shadows danced on the walls in the moonlit room, their silent narratives weaving a tapestry of mystery. Extending a hand towards the glass, I felt the chill of the outside air caress my fingertips. Just as I neared the window, on the verge of contact, it closed with a gentle hush, mirroring its earlier unhurried motion. The latch clicked softly into place, dissipating the ancient fragrance that had permeated the room. I stood in silence for what seemed like an eternity, listening to the persistent patter of rain outside. The room had reverted to its usual appearance, yet an intangible shift had transpired. It felt as though the house had granted me a glimpse into another realm, a parallel world existing just beyond our own, visible only in those fleeting moments when reality brushes against the unknown like gossamer. Since that fateful night, whenever the rain falls, I find myself ensconced in my armchair, watching the reflection of the upstairs window in the hallway mirror. Sometimes it remains still, a silent sentinel. Other times it opens gradually, in a ritualistic dance that has woven itself into the fabric of my existence. The source of this enigmatic phenomenon remains a mystery, but I have come to embrace it as a secret shared solely between myself and the ancient walls of my abode. On the quietest of nights, when the wind murmurs through the trees and the rain whispers its gentle song, I almost sense a familiar presence, a silent guardian that watches over me, unseen yet ever present. Through a window that opens of its own accord, this ethereal companion chooses to reveal itself, bridging the gap between worlds in a dance of solitude and serenity. Story 11. The autumn mist draped the park like a gentle shroud of gray silk as leaves twirled languidly in the cool evening breeze. Strolling along the gravel path, I relished the aroma of damp earth and the hushed rustle of my own steps. Soft halos of light from the street lamps cast a dim glow through the mist, barely revealing the way ahead. And then amidst the ethereal haze I spied it, a dark coat, neatly folded on a weathered wooden bench, the only inhabitant of the park at that late hour. The garment appeared meticulously arranged, as if placed with deliberate intent. Approaching cautiously, I observed the woolen fabric absorbing the moisture in the air, its elegance highlighted by faint glimmers from mother-of-pearl buttons. The coat still held warmth, as though its wearer had just shed it. This detail stirred not fear, but rather a curious intrigue within me. Peering into the pockets, my hopes for a clue were met with emptiness, save for a lone bus ticket dated back to 1985. Time seemed to slow as I examined this relic from another era, its yellowed paper strangely well preserved. Seating myself beside the coat, I allowed my mind to drift as the fog enveloped me further. A subtle scent of lavender and pipe tobacco emanated from the fabric, conjuring memories of days long past, of faded photographs and forgotten tales. Upon closer inspection, a faded detail stitched within caught my eye, the initials JM in golden thread on the verge of disappearing. The park's quietude was broken by a distant melody, aged music wafting through the mist like a half-remembered dream. Rising from the bench to trace the source of the music, it seemed to evade my grasp, echoing from every direction and none in particular. When I turned back to the coat, a subtle shift had occurred, as if it had been moved during my distraction. The once perfect fold now askew, a button catching the light in a different manner. Yet the park remained empty, save for the fog that clung tighter with each passing moment. Shadows danced beneath the flickering streetlights while the music faded into the distance. Contemplating the enigma of JM and their abandoned coat, I felt a gentle touch upon my shoulder, like a whisper of wind. Swiveling around, I found only the swirling mist, the coat now bearing more pronounced signs of age, the fabric weathered and colors fading. Respecting the mystery, I chose to leave it undisturbed. As I departed, the music briefly crescendoed, a waltz unfamiliar yet strangely nostalgic, lingering in the air. Returning the next morning, driven by curiosity, the bench stood empty, save for the lingering impression of where the coat had rested. Beside it lay a fresh bus ticket, dated for that very day. Even now, on misty evenings passing by that bench, echoes of the distant melody linger, mingling with the scents of lavender and tobacco. Sometimes, when the streetlights cast playful shadows, I glimpse the silhouette of a refined figure strolling through the park. Yet upon closer inspection, it dissolves into the whimsical dance of leaves in the evening breeze. Story 12. The November breeze whispered through the dry leaves scattered on the path as I gazed at the abandoned mansion silhouetted against the dreary sky. Known as the never-inhabited house, a misleading name, for it had a history shrouded in forgotten memories. Approaching the weathered gate, the chill of the wrought iron bars tingled under my touch. The air carried a musty scent of moss and damp stone, enveloping the neglected garden in a cloak of wild overgrowth. Despite its decay, the mansion exuded a poignant charm that captivated my senses. As a real estate agent tasked with evaluating the property, I ventured through the unruly garden, noticing peculiar signs of recent activity amidst the tangled weeds. Traces of pathways hinted at a mysterious presence that frequented the grounds, a puzzle unsolved. The creak of the front door echoed softly as I pushed it open, revealing an interior bathed in a bluish twilight filtering through closed shutters. The heavy air hung with dust and the faint fragrance of aged wood as the old floorboards groaned beneath my footsteps in the dimly lit grand salon. Covered furniture draped in yellowed sheets loomed like ghostly apparitions, their reflections dancing in the veiled mirrors adorning the walls. Ascending the polished wooden staircase worn by the touch of generations past, I explored the empty rooms, each capturing a frozen moment in time. It was in the final bedroom that a sense of unease crept over me. A woman's touch lingered in the disturbed dust, a silver brush and strands of dark hair bearing a freshness amidst the neglect. My pulse quickened as I beheld the meticulously arranged bed, a faint impression suggesting recent occupancy. A fleeting movement in the mirror caught my eye, a phantom figure seated on the bed, vanishing upon my swift turn. Descending the stairs with a hastened pace, the shifting afternoon light cast deeper shadows, the mirrors seeming to hold secrets within their cloudy glass. A haunting melody drifted down from above, a melancholic tune that stirred ancient memories, barely audible yet profoundly felt. Leaving the mansion behind, I closed the door on whispers of a presence lingering in the vacant rooms. The tranquil garden enveloped me in silence, the wind now still as I passed through the gate, stealing a final glance at the mysterious dwelling. A flicker of movement behind an upstairs window teased my perception, a fleeting glow vanishing into the shadows. In the days that followed, I meticulously prepared my report on the property, omitting the enigmatic details of my encounter. Instead, I hinted at the unique allure that might attract a discerning buyer, preserving the mansion's hidden charm. The house lingered on the market, a silent sentinel waiting for its destined occupant. Each visit to the rusted gate brought glimpses of a spectral figure moving through the upper rooms, a haunting presence that defied the passage of time. Perhaps the secret of the never-inhabited house lay not in its vacancy, but in the eternal presence of a soul bound to its walls, a mystery that whispered through the corridors of forgotten memory. Story 13. The stillness hung heavy on that autumn night. Walking along the gravel driveway leading to the ancestral home, the crunch of my steps echoed loudly in the shroud of darkness. Dry leaves swirled lazily around my feet, whisked by a gentle breeze whispering through the centuries-old trees. The house had stood empty since Aunt Mary's departure, and the duty of ensuring its upkeep had fallen to me. With a metallic click, the antique key turned in the lock, its sound reverberating through the silent porch. A distinctive aroma lingered in the air, a blend of aged wood and a mysterious essence that evoked memories of childhood days spent within those walls. Stepping inside, I observed the faint twilight seeping through the delicate lace curtains, casting intricate patterns on the wooden floor. The silence within was profound, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Yet there was an eerie quality to that silence, hinting at an unseen presence. Progressing down the main corridor, my footsteps echoed familiarly on the polished hardwood. The walls still bore the familiar family portraits of generations past, but their gazes now seemed to hold a different intent. Halting before my grandmother's portrait, a peculiar detail caught my eye. Her smile appeared subtly altered, imbued with a newfound enigma. It was then that I detected it, a sound so faint that I initially dismissed it as a figment of my imagination. A distant echo, akin to a lullaby sung in a remote chamber. The melody, though recognizable, eluded my attempts to fully grasp it. Intrigued, I followed the ethereal strain, tracing its source to the upper floor. Ascending the stairs, each creaking step narrated a tale of its own. The melody grew clearer, yet retained a wistful quality, slipping through my grasp like a fleeting dream. Upon reaching the landing, I pinpointed the origin of the sound, the old playroom, a sanctuary of childhood memories spent with cousins during rainy afternoons. The door stood slightly ajar, permitting a sliver of moonlight to filter through. With a gentle push, I entered. The chamber appeared unchanged, the rocking horse in the corner, the bookshelf brimming with children's tales, the weathered toy chest. However, a new addition caught my attention, a music box perched on the windowsill, unfamiliar to me. I approached cautiously. Crafted from tarnished brass, adorned with delicate floral motifs, the music box lay silent, yet the haunting melody persisted in the air as if the very walls were harmonizing it. A peculiar sight greeted me as I glanced at its reflection in the window. The ballerina atop the box seemed to twirl, though the object remained motionless before me. Blinking, the illusion dissolved. It dawned on me then, the lullaby was one my grandmother had sung to us before bedtime, yet she had long departed before this room transformed into a play area. How could her voice resonate so vividly in the space? Retrieving the music box, I felt an unusual warmth emanating from it. Etched faintly on its base was a nearly faded engraving, revealing a date matching my grandmother's birth. The melody gradually faded, blending with the house's silence until it dissolved entirely. Seated atop the antique toy chest, clutching the music box, I watched as the moon cast playful shadows upon the floor. Since that night, I carry the music box whenever I visit. Though it remains silent on the hushed evenings, I sense a distant echo of the lullaby, as if the house retains the memory of every song sung within its walls. Perhaps I ponder as I close the door, certain places hold the echoes of love and care, resonating softly through time, an eternal reminder that nothing truly fades away. Story 14. The gentle glow of my desk lamp bathed the weathered surface of my grandfather's antique writing desk in soft shadows. Rain tapped a soothing melody against the window panes, creating a tranquil ambience in the quiet evening hours. Among the collection of old letters and postcards, a pristine white envelope stood out, untouched by time, with its crisp paper and elegant handwriting. My name, written in deep blue ink, shimmered under the lamplight, evoking a sense of familiarity tinged with mystery. What truly captivated me was the date on the envelope, December 27, 2025, precisely a year from that moment. Turning it over, the seal, pressed with dark red wax, bore a mesmerizing pattern that seemed to shift and swirl like a hidden message. The scent of old books and leather mingled with hints of lavender and a metallic tang, creating an intriguing blend that hung in the air. As I broke the seal, the paper inside revealed my own handwriting, urgent and hurried compared to the exterior. The words on the page seemed to pulse with a life of their own, speaking of choices yet to be made, paths yet to be walked, and consequences waiting in the shadows. The letter painted a vivid picture of a future not yet realized, each sentence drawing me deeper into a realm of possibilities and uncertainties. Reading on, the room's atmosphere seemed to shift, the light flickering in harmony with the rain outside, as if nature itself was responding to the narrative unfolding before me. The final paragraph halted abruptly, leaving a sense of anticipation hanging in the air. A postscript, written in a different ink, hinted at a pivotal moment. Remember, the choice comes at midnight. The door will only open once. Glancing at the grandfather clock, I noticed it was 5 minutes to midnight. The rain had ceased, enveloping the room in a profound stillness broken only by the ticking of the clock. Holding the letter, I felt its weight diminish, almost as if it was on the verge of vanishing into thin air. Moving to the window, I gazed at the moon casting its silver glow, witnessing the ink on the page fade away, leaving behind a blank canvas scented with lavender and the essence of what could have been. The envelope disappeared from sight, eluding my searches in the following days. Yet on quiet rainy nights, the fragrance of lavender and ozone would drift through the room, triggering a wave of nostalgia and curiosity. I pondered the choice mentioned in the letter. Had I already made it, or was it still looming on the horizon? Perhaps both realities coexisted, intertwined like the past and future captured in that mysterious message. The steady rhythm of the grandfather clock served as a reminder of time's relentless march. But on nights like these, when shadows danced and rain whispered against the window, I found myself contemplating the threshold of midnight, wondering if a future version of myself might be reaching out across time and space, seeking to bridge the gap between what is and what could be. Story 15. The night draped the house in a velvet hush as the wind murmured softly through the leaves of the ancient tree in the garden. Nestled in the cozy armchair in my bedroom, I gazed as shadows waltzed on the walls under the flickering lamplight. It was that magical time when slumber beckoned, yet a peculiar resistance lingered within me, defying the call of Morpheus. The cause was clear. Night after night, a recurring dream had woven its intricate web around my mind with uncanny precision. The room's warmth and the steady cadence of the old pendulum clock lulled me into a tranquil state. My gaze fell upon the open diary resting on the desk, its pages filled with meticulous accounts of the recurring dream. Each entry, penned with precision, detailed the same sequence of events: a spiral staircase of gray stone spiraling into the depths, the echo of water droplets in the distance, and a grand wooden door adorned with enigmatic symbols. Leafing through the diary, a detail caught my eye, one that had eluded me before. In every iteration of the dream, the chill seemed to seep into the air as I descended the stairs. My fingers grazed the cold stone, my breath forming delicate clouds in the frigid atmosphere. Yet what made the dream truly extraordinary was the profound sense of déjà vu that threaded through the journey, as though the staircase led to a realm I intimately knew, though never traversed in waking life. The door at the staircase's base remained sealed, but with each passing night, I drew closer to unraveling the intricacies of the carved symbols adorning it. They were fluid, shifting shapes that seemed to pulse with life under my scrutiny. In the dream, my fingertips traced the contours of those enigmatic symbols, each touch eliciting a subtle vibration that rippled through the wood, as if the door itself breathed in tandem with my exploration. That evening, as I readied myself for slumber, a peculiar sight greeted me in my room. Nestled beside the lamp on the nightstand lay an ancient bronze key, its ornate designs bearing a striking resemblance to the door's symbols in my dreams. Picking it up, I marveled at its weight and the icy chill it exuded. Though I could not recall its origin, its presence felt inexplicably familiar, as if it had always been an integral part of my existence. Settling into bed, I clutched the key in my palm, its solid weight grounding me in reality. As sleep beckoned, a sense of anticipation tingled in the air. The dream unfurled as usual, the winding staircase, the melodic drip of water, the gradual descent into an icy embrace. Yet this time, upon reaching the door, the key in my hand thrummed softly, harmonizing with the etchings on the wooden surface. Drawing close to the door, I discerned a hidden lock nestled amidst the intricate carvings. With a steady hand and a heart that echoed a timeless rhythm, I inserted the key. The mechanism yielded to my touch with a gentle, melodic sigh, akin to an ancient, forgotten tune. Slowly, the door swung open, revealing not a chamber but a mirror that reflected the staircase behind me. In the mirrored image, the steps ascended instead of descended. Awakening in my room to the soft hues of dawn filtering through the curtains, I found the key still cradled in my hand, now pulsing with a warmth that felt almost alive. Upon the open diary on the desk lay a fresh page, inscribed not in my familiar script. The characters bore a resemblance to the symbols on the door, their shapes undulating like waves upon an ink-black sea. Since that transformative night, the dream has remained elusive, a whisper of a memory that lingers on the edge of consciousness. The key rests upon my nightstand, a silent sentinel that occasionally stirs with a subtle vibration on nights steeped in profound stillness. I often ponder the mysteries that await at the apex of the mirrored staircase, questioning if the day will come when I muster the courage to ascend. For now, I find solace in observing the symbols within the diary, their dance unfolding in the shadows of the night, spinning a tale that perhaps my soul is not yet prepared to fully grasp. And so, in the embrace of darkness, I drift into realms of reverie, where dreams and reality converge in a symphony of enigma and wonder. Story 16. In the hush of the night, my footsteps whispered through the ancient wooden corridor, each creak of the floorboards harmonizing with the gentle patter of rain on the window panes. A sweet fragrance lingered in the air, a blend of aged wood and musty paper. Pausing before the door at the hallway's end, a room sealed shut for months, I felt a peculiar pull. The lock gleamed faintly in the dim lamplight, beckoning me with a silent plea. I vividly recalled locking it last, the ritual of turning the key thrice and checking the handle, a routine that offered solace and reassurance. But that night held a subtle shift in the air. A chill seemed to emanate from the door, and a delicate layer of dust had settled on the brass knob in intricate patterns, drawing my gaze. As I leaned in for a closer look, the dust formed concentric circles, like ethereal sigils etched by unseen hands. The wood exuded a faint warmth under my touch, a curious sensation given the room's prolonged closure and absence of heating. Placing my ear against the door, I strained to discern a distant sound in the silence, a rhythmic breath akin to one lost in slumber. Retrieving the key from my robe, it felt oddly warm in my palm. With deliberate care, I inserted it into the lock, the mechanism yielding hesitantly as if altered from within. A flutter of excitement intertwined with curiosity quickened my pulse. Turning the key, it met resistance, prompting a surge of anticipation akin to the brink of revelation. Attempting the other direction, the lock yielded with a soft click, unveiling a waft of warm, fragrant air, redolent of freshly brewed vanilla tea. Moonbeams cascaded through sheer curtains, bathing the room in a silvered luminescence that rendered the familiar space both foreign and alluring. The books on the shelves seemed rearranged, forming cryptic patterns previously unseen. The plush armchair had shifted slightly, facing the window, beside it an empty cup of porcelain, its presence a mystery to me. Approaching the mahogany desk, my fingertips traced the uneven dust, as if ghostly words had been inscribed and since erased. Beside the inkwell lay a yellowed sheet of paper bearing a single sentence in script resembling my own, though I bore no recollection of penning it. Time flows differently here. A synchronicity enveloped me, aligning my breath with the gentle billow of the curtains, though the air lay still. The room's silence pulsed with a latent vitality, a symphony of whispers just beyond perception. Nestled in the velvet armchair, I beheld the room's reflection in the window, a fleeting glimpse of a blurred figure dancing in the shadows behind me, only to vanish upon my turn. Eyes closed, I surrendered to the silence, and upon reopening them, the room had subtly shifted, every object minutely displaced. The once cold cup now emanated warmth, tendrils of steam rising gracefully. Rising from the chair, a weighty enigma draped over me as I made my way to the door, my footfalls soundless upon the wooden planks. Pausing at the threshold, I cast a final glance. The room exhaled softly, a slumbering entity. With a gentle touch, I closed the door, the click of the lock a lullaby echoing through the corridor's stillness. Since that fateful night, a whisper of vanilla tea lingers each time I pass the door, accompanied by the rustle of pages turned by unseen hands. The room remains a veiled enigma, its secrets best left undisturbed in the embrace of silence. Story 17. The doorbell remained silent on that autumn afternoon, as if the world outside held its breath. A gentle knock echoed through the house, barely there, like a secret whispered by the wind. I sat on the couch, cocooned in a cozy blanket, lost in a book, while the rain tapped a soothing rhythm on the window, a lullaby for the soul. Rising from my spot with a calm curiosity, I followed the sound to the door. half expecting to find a figment of imagination. But there, in the quiet solitude of the threshold, lay a brown package, neatly squared, devoid of any markings or clues. Only my name, elegantly scripted in a calligraphy that spoke of ages past, adorned the surface, etched with a mysterious grace. The cardboard felt smooth under my fingertips, untouched by the rain that painted the world outside in shades of gray. Bringing the enigmatic package inside, the silence deepened around me, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the old clock and the gentle patter of raindrops. Seated once more on the couch, I turned the parcel around, searching for a clue, a hint to unravel its secrets. No seams or openings marred its flawless surface, as if the box itself held its mysteries close, guarding them from prying eyes. A familiar scent, elusive yet comforting, wafted from within, a blend of ancient books, black tea, and the faint whisper of sandalwood. As I cradled the box in my hands, a subtle movement stirred within, a dance of unseen forces that teased the edges of perception. The fading light of the afternoon cast elongated shadows in the room, painting everything in a soft, ethereal glow. Opting for the natural dusk that embraced the world in a tender embrace, I let the package bask in the dwindling light, its surface reflecting the fading day in a mesmerizing play of shadows. Tracing the edges with my fingertips, I noticed a curious warmth emanating from certain spots, a hidden energy that pulsed beneath the surface, a secret heartbeat of the box. Lost in contemplation, a distant memory tiptoed into my mind, a fragment of a forgotten dream from childhood. A similar package, a similar handwriting, a similar sense of mystery lingering in the air. The rain outside whispered a tale of its own, weaving patterns on the window that mirrored the warmth I felt on the box. Was it mere coincidence, or was there a deeper connection at play, an invisible thread linking past and present? As twilight settled around me, a subtle shift in the room's temperature went unnoticed, as if the very air held its breath in anticipation. The scent from the box grew stronger, mingling with the fresh rain that drifted through the open window, creating a symphony of fragrances that danced in the air. And then a revelation, where my skin touched the cardboard, faint traces of light lingered, shimmering like stardust before fading into the night. Hours passed in a hushed reverie, the evening painting the room in hues of blue, the only source of light emanating from the mysterious box. Deciding to leave its secrets undisturbed for the night, I placed it gently on the coffee table, its presence a silent promise of wonders yet to unfold. With a soft glow that defied explanation, the box seemed to hold the essence of mystery itself, a riddle waiting to be embraced. In the days that followed, the box remained a silent companion, a whisper of the unknown in the corner of the room. The faint glow in the twilight, the subtle movements within, the ever-changing scent that lingered in the air all spoke of a story untold, a mystery left to linger in the quiet spaces of the heart. The identity of the sender remained a secret, the contents of the box a tantalizing enigma, inviting contemplation rather than resolution. And so, as the rain continued its gentle cadence on autumn evenings, I found myself drawn back to that moment of quiet wonder, of a mystery that defied explanation. Perhaps somewhere out there, another soul pondered a similar box, a mirror image of mystery and intrigue, wondering whether to unravel its secrets or let the dance of the unknown continue in the stillness of the night. Story 18. In our residential neighborhood, autumn nights weave a tapestry of magic. The cool breeze whispers secrets of fallen leaves, and the hushed rhythm of footsteps on the damp streets lulls the world to sleep. But in recent weeks, a peculiar anomaly has captured my attention during my nightly strolls home from work. At the intersection of Maple Street and Rose Avenue, a single streetlight stands out from the rest, its behavior shrouded in mystery. Unlike its steadfast companions, this particular light possesses a hidden agenda. As I draw near, its luminance wanes, as if veiling a secret from prying eyes. Initially dismissing it as a mere malfunction, I soon became captivated by its enigmatic performance. The light dimmed only in my presence, refusing to reveal its true nature to anyone else. Intrigued, I embarked on an experiment one evening, standing at a distance and observing the gradual fading of its glow as I approached. The closer I got, the dimmer it became, as though withholding a whispered truth. Underneath the faint halo of light, a peculiar pattern etched into the glass caught my eye, a cryptic message awaiting deciphering. Each night thereafter, I altered my route to intersect with the mysterious streetlight, drawn to its eerie allure. With each encounter, a ritual unfolded, the dimming light, the thickening silence, the sensation of unseen eyes watching from above. Delving deeper into this nocturnal enigma, I uncovered subtle nuances in the light's hue, almost as if it spoke in a language of colors. On a moonlit night, a melodic hum emanated from within the pole, resonating through me as I reached out to touch its cool metal surface. It was as though the streetlight sought to communicate, to share its untold story with a willing listener. Documenting my observations meticulously, I noticed a correlation between the dimming intensity and the phases of the moon. During the new moon, the light nearly extinguished itself upon my passing, while on full moon nights it retained a steady glow. Moreover, the duration of its return to full brightness following my departure followed a precise rhythm, always 23 seconds, unwavering and deliberate. As the streetlight's peculiar behavior began to shape my nightly routine, I found myself entranced by its silent symphony. A silent pact formed between us, a dance of shadows and light that transcended the realm of the ordinary. In the circle of dimmed light, I stood still, enveloped in a world of whispers and echoes from a bygone era. I resisted the urge to seek a rational explanation, preferring to savor the enigma that had chosen me as its confidant. Each evening, as the world slumbers, I anticipate the silent communion with my clandestine companion, the streetlight that dims at my approach. In that fleeting moment of darkness, when the world holds its breath, I find myself a part of something greater, a mystery that speaks in the language of twilight, revealing its secrets through the dance of shadows and light. Story 19. The November rain softly tapped against the windows of Grandma Rose's attic, crafting a natural lullaby that always brought me a deep sense of tranquility. Returning after years to sift through her belongings now that she had departed, I was enveloped in the aroma of aged wood and weathered books that lingered in the air. The fading light of twilight seeped through the half-opened shutters, casting playful shadows upon the vintage wallpapered walls. Nestled in a forgotten corner, concealed beneath a thin film of dust, rested the antique brass record player Grandma Rose cherished, gleaming like a polished mirror. A relic from another era, its mechanical arm adorned with intricate floral patterns and the turntable flawlessly preserved. Beside it, a collection of vinyl records neatly organized in time-worn cardboard sleeves. As I perused the records, my fingers halted upon a specific one. Its cover pure white, devoid of title or author, adorned only with a delicate golden border that shimmered in the dim light. Though unfamiliar, I knew every record in Grandma Rose's collection by heart. Intrigued, I resolved to listen to it. The record player hummed to life with a gentle, familiar buzz. Placing the record onto the turntable and lowering the arm, I was greeted initially by the customary crackle of vinyl, then the music commenced. A melody unknown to my ears, a piano waltz, yet there was an enigmatic quality in the way the notes intermingled. The music seemed to shift subtly with each revolution of the record, as if the notes rearranged themselves into fresh harmonies. Closing my eyes, I surrendered to this peculiar composition. Fragrances of jasmine, Grandma Rose's beloved flower, wafted around me, a surreal sensation considering the wintry season. Upon opening my eyes, I observed the shadows in the room moving in an unusual manner, swaying not with the fading light, but dancing to the rhythm of that mysterious melody. Before me, upon the wall, a figure's shadow twirled in a waltz, despite my solitude. The music persisted, and amidst the piano notes, I discerned a familiar soft laughter. Grandma Rose's laughter, vivid and unchanged. A shiver cascaded down my spine, not of fear, but of a wistful marvel. Rising from the armchair, I approached the window. In the glass's reflection, a fleeting image of Grandma Rose, youthful and resplendent in her favorite dance attire, spun gracefully in the attic center. Yet upon turning around, the room was void of her presence. The record played to its conclusion, and as the final note faded into silence, the atmosphere shifted, warmer, more vibrant, as if that brief musical interlude had roused dormant memories within the house's very walls. That evening, as I returned the enigmatic record to its white sleeve, a detail caught my eye. Inscribed in Grandma Rose's elegant script along the inner edge, a date, her wedding day. Beneath it, almost imperceptible, a message. Music is the key to our most precious memories. Since that day, whenever I revisit the attic, I seek out that particular record. Sometimes it reveals itself readily, other times it seems to hide amidst the other vinyls. Each time I listen, the melody varies slightly, as though it harbors infinite iterations of the same memory. The true nature of this record, whether a special gift or something more mystical, remains elusive. However, one certainty prevails. On those rainy evenings when the record player spins that peculiar melody, the attic brims with a subtle enchantment. In those fleeting moments, the boundary between present and past, reality and memory, thins to a mere whisper, akin to the delicate paper of an aged photograph. Perhaps during those instances, Grandma Rose dances on, forever young, forever joyful, in an eternal waltz. Story 20. The gentle flicker of candlelight cast a soft glow, painting intricate shadows on the walls of my bedroom. Raindrops tapped lightly against the window, their rhythmic melody harmonizing with the steady cadence of my breath. Solitude enveloped me, a familiar embrace amidst the antique furniture and the scent of aged leather-bound books. Yet on this particular night, a subtle shift in the air whispered of something unseen. Seated at my vintage writing desk, a peculiar sound caught my attention, a faint scratching coming from the wall beside me. Initially dismissing it as the house settling, I couldn't ignore the deliberate pattern underlying the noise. Pressing my ear against the aged wallpaper, the scratching evolved into a hypnotic rhythm, as if encoded messages were being slowly unveiled. Exploring further, I discovered hidden markings etched into the plaster, intricate symbols hinting at a hidden language. Each stroke seemed purposeful, each curve deliberate. With a sense of curiosity, I sketched the symbols in my notebook, their arrangement forming a cryptic pattern that tugged at the edges of my memory. Time slipped away as I delved deeper, the rain outside providing a tranquil backdrop to my investigation. The symbols seemed to morph with the flickering candlelight, shifting between ancient glyphs and celestial maps. The ambience of the room grew heavier, the air thick with an unspoken anticipation. Peeling back more sections of wallpaper revealed a growing network of symbols, each pulsating with a faint glow. They felt alive beneath my fingertips, resonating with an energy that transcended mere markings. The rain intensified, its tempo syncing with the mysterious symbols as if in a dance of hidden knowledge. As midnight loomed, a gentle hum replaced the scratching, a melody unheard but felt deep within. I meticulously transcribed the symbols, their enigmatic dance filling pages with their cryptic beauty. Shadows danced across the walls, the symbols seeming to come alive in the shifting light. Exhaustion eventually claimed me, and as I succumbed to sleep, the rain's lullaby serenaded me. Whispers, soft and comforting, drifted from the wall, weaving tales of forgotten lore and ancient wisdom. With the dawn's light, the symbols remained, patient and enigmatic, waiting for the veil of night to descend once more. Running my fingers over the symbols one final time, I understood that some mysteries are not meant to be unraveled but cherished in their enigma. The secrets within the wall, hidden behind a veil of paint, served as a reminder that the mundane could hold the extraordinary, waiting for a curious soul to unveil its secrets in the quiet of the night. Story 21. The fall breeze whispered through the trees, orchestrating a gentle melody that harmonized with the hushed hum of the surrounding crowd. Seated on my beloved bench in the park, I observed the steady stream of passers-by tracing the paved paths. The air held a crispness, carrying hints of damp earth and rain-soaked wood. Though a book rested in my hands, my focus was captured by a subtle, almost elusive sensation that lingered within me for days on end. It all began with a whisper. One morning on my way to work, a tingling sensation grazed my neck as though unseen eyes were fixed upon me. Startled, I turned around, only to find the usual rush of commuters scurrying towards their destinations. In the days that followed, the feeling grew stronger, more palpable. It lingered during lunch breaks, amidst grocery runs, even while sipping coffee at my favorite cafe. As people continued to drift past my bench, some solitary, others in pairs, a sense of unease crept over me. A woman in a scarlet coat paused to check her phone. An elderly man ambled leisurely with his polished cane. Yet, amidst the familiar faces, an unknown presence lingered, indefinable yet haunting. Closing my book, I rose and embarked on a stroll. The sky blushed with amber hues, casting a soft glow as streetlights flickered to life. Each step I took echoed on the gravel path, the invisible presence trailing behind like a shadow at dusk. Halting before a shop window, I feigned interest in the wares on display. Through the glass, I scrutinized the figures passing by. And there, amidst the shifting crowd, I glimpsed a peculiar sight. A face that seemed ever present, flickering in and out of view with uncanny fluidity. Resuming my walk with heightened vigilance, I veered down side streets, the throng thinning yet the presence unyielding. Seated on a bench in a tranquil square, encircled by ancient edifices adorned with glowing windows, a chill settled in the air as stars timidly speckled the evening sky. It dawned on me then a disquieting truth. It was not a singular gaze tracking me, but many. Faces rotated in a silent, choreographed ballet, some recurring more frequently than others: a woman in a cerulean scarf, a bespectacled gentleman, a schoolboy with a backpack. Rising slowly, I made my way home, the weight of those unseen eyes pressing upon me. The streets now deserted, the sensation only heightened in the nocturnal stillness. Seated by my window, I peered down at the passing figures, pondering their role in this enigmatic surveillance. As city lights flickered to life one by one, I contemplated the nature of this clandestine watch. Who were these observers? What drove them to shadow my every move? And why me, of all the countless souls in the urban tapestry? These questions lingered, suspended in the night air, as darkness enveloped the city in its cloak. Since that moment, I've acclimated to this eerie cognizance. At times, I endeavor to discern my watchers; at others, I feign ignorance. Yet they persist as spectral companions at the periphery of my existence. In the hush of night, as I gaze out from my window onto the dwindling streets, I muse upon whether they, too, contemplate my presence from their concealed abodes, preparing for another day in this mystifying waltz of gazes and shadows. Story 22. The gentle patter of rain on the rooftop sang a soothing lullaby as I readied myself for the night ahead. Droplets cascaded down the window, casting playful shadows across the walls of my study. The dormant fireplace carried whispers of burnt wood from a past evening, while the soft glow of the desk lamp enveloped the room in a tender, secure hug. Amidst the tranquil hush, a faint, unfamiliar sound pierced the stillness, a ringing, pure and crystalline, defying logic as it echoed through the air. Curiously, I rose from my cozy armchair, setting aside my book. The plush Persian rug muffled my steps as I approached the antique shelf. There it stood, the old black rotary phone, a relic from my grandmother, gleaming softly in the dim light despite being disconnected long ago when I opted for a cell phone. The ringing ceased just as my fingers brushed its cold surface, evoking memories of childhood days spent watching my grandmother dial numbers on its rotating disc. Dismissing it as a trick of exhaustion, I turned away, only for the phone to ring once more, its tone more insistent, demanding my attention. Intrigued yet wary, I watched as the receiver quivered with each ring, catching the light in a mesmerizing dance. Counting each chime in a trance-like state, I found myself drawn to the fifth ring, compelled to answer. With a mix of trepidation and curiosity, I lifted the receiver. The ensuing silence was profound, broken only by the steady rhythm of raindrops on the window pane. Bringing the receiver to my ear, the chill of the bakelite against my skin sent shivers down my spine. No dial tone greeted me, only a void of sound and eerie absence. And then a breath, slow, measured, distant, as though someone on the other end awaited my response. The cadence of that breath stirred dormant memories, reminiscent of my grandmother's gentle exhales as she dozed in her cherished armchair, always within arm's reach of the phone. "Hello," I murmured, barely audible over the rain symphony. The breath seemed to pause, waiting, before morphing into a long, sorrowful sigh that tugged at my heartstrings. Motionless, I listened, the breath now a melancholic echo of the rain's tempo. No fear gripped me, only a peculiar blend of peace and longing. It felt as though this surreal moment held a narrative beyond words. The breathing continued, punctuated by pregnant pauses brimming with unspoken significance. Surrendering to the moment, I closed my eyes, allowing the sound to envelop me like a familiar embrace. Time seemed to warp, but upon opening my eyes, the room had shifted. The lamp's glow was softer, more embracing, and the air carried a hint of lavender, my grandmother's signature scent. Slowly, almost hesitantly, I returned the receiver to its cradle. The phone fell silent, yet a sense of solace lingered as if its message had been delivered. Sinking back into the armchair, I gazed at the phone in the dimness, rain continuing its melodic serenade. Since that enigmatic night, the phone has remained silent. Yet on rainy evenings, when the silence grows deep, I sense a distant breath, a familiar sigh traversing time. In those fleeting moments, a smile tugs at my lips, for I know some connections transcend mere wires and walls. Story 23. The grandfather clock in my study tolled midnight with its deep, familiar resonance, each chime echoing through the still air like gentle ripples on a tranquil pond. Nestled in my worn leather armchair, a weathered book lay open on my lap, its pages whispering stories of old. Outside, the rain tapped softly against the windows, creating a soothing lullaby. The house around me settled into a hushed embrace, its ancient wooden frame sighing with the weight of time. My gaze drifted to the hallway door, bathed in the warm glow of my reading lamp. Tonight, something about it felt subtly different, a shift imperceptible yet undeniable. The brass handle gleamed, catching the light in a new way, while the wood seemed to hold secrets in its grain. Despite 15 years of familiarity, the door now appeared as a stranger in my midst. Rising from my seat, I marked my place in the book with a delicate silk ribbon. The floor felt cool beneath my slippers as I approached the door, a chill creeping through the air as if a whisper of winter had slipped inside. My hand reached for the handle, finding it surprisingly warm against the coolness enveloping it. With a gentle push, the door swung open, revealing the unchanging hallway beyond, bathed in the soft light of my study. Closing the door, I dismissed my fanciful thoughts as mere tricks of the mind. Yet that night, my dreams were filled with doors that appeared in impossible places, beckoning with a warmth that transcended reality. Morning broke, the sun casting long shadows across the hallway. Only then did I notice the subtle alteration. The door stood lighter in hue, as if touched by the hand of time overnight. Intrigued, I scrutinized every detail, noting the newfound patina on the brass handle and the altered grain of the wood. With each passing evening, the door underwent a silent metamorphosis. Sometimes aged, other times renewed, it danced between past and present, a silent observer of its own transformation. I began to document these changes meticulously, capturing each nuance with a keen eye. One night, curiosity drove me to keep vigil, determined to witness the door's mysterious evolution. As the clock ticked relentlessly, I watched. At 3:17 a.m., a flicker of light and a shift in the air heralded a new iteration. The warm oak had transformed into rich mahogany, intricate silver patterns now adorning its surface in a mesmerizing dance. Approaching the door, I hesitated at the sight of a crystal handle, its presence humming with a subtle energy. Absent-mindedly, I searched for the keyhole, a detail now conspicuously absent. Confusion gnawed at my thoughts, a puzzle unsolved. Days passed in scrutiny, searching for answers within the pages of my journal. The missing keyhole haunted me, a mystery begging to be unraveled. Yet the door remained silent, a gatekeeper to secrets unknown. Each night, as the clock struck midnight and rain whispered against the panes, I found myself drawn to the door's enigmatic changes. Shadows of alternate realities teased the corner of my vision, fleeting glimpses of unfamiliar hallways beckoning from beneath the door's frame. I toyed with the idea of shifting the photographs, testing the boundaries of perception. But an unseen force stayed my hand, a warning whispered by the night itself. The spaces between reality and illusion blurred, a delicate balance held in the palm of uncertainty. The door continued its nightly dance, a silent ballet of transformation. Perhaps it was not the door that changed, but my perception of it, a reflection of the shifting tides within. In the quiet moments before dawn, I awaited the chime of the grandfather clock, eager to unravel the mysteries hidden within the ever-changing door, a portal to the unknown realms that linger just beyond our grasp. Story 24, the grandfather clock in my study had always been a reliable companion, its gentle ticking echoing through the room like a soothing lullaby. But one morning, as I sat surrounded by the familiar comfort of my study, a subtle shift in the atmosphere caught my attention. The cadence of the clock seemed to falter, its rhythmic beat elongating into a momentary stretch that defied the laws of time. Initially brushing it off as a trick of the mind, I continued with my morning routine, basking in the golden light that filtered through the curtains, casting a warm embrace over the wooden floors. Everything appeared unchanged: my steaming cup of tea, the rustling leaves outside, yet an unexplainable heaviness lingered in the air. When I reached for my pocket watch, a peculiar sensation enveloped me, as if I were moving through water, the second hand frozen in a delicate dance between two marks. A surreal stillness enveloped the room, freezing even the dust motes in midair and halting the graceful ascent of steam from my tea. The world outside stood suspended in time, each moment captured in a silent tableau of tranquility. As I traversed through my home, each step sent ripples through the air, distorting the fabric of reality in this suspended moment. Nature itself seemed to hold its breath, with a bird frozen mid-flight, leaves hanging in mid-descent, and a cat perched on a wall, tail curved in perpetual elegance. Rather than fear, a sense of wonder enveloped me, drawing me deeper into this timeless realm. Every detail once overlooked now held profound significance in this pause of time. The urgency of the outside world faded into insignificance as I embraced the serenity of this frozen reality. In my study, a mirror revealed a reflection that mirrored my movements with eerie precision, yet with a subtle difference that hinted at a parallel existence. The mirror beckoned me with a warmth that transcended its surface, offering a glimpse into a world where time flowed in mysterious ways. Hours may have slipped by, or mere moments, time itself held no sway in this timeless realm. As I found myself back at my desk, the world around me began to stir with subtle signs of life. Dust motes quivered, steam dissipated, and the curtains stirred with newfound vitality. The grandfather clock's pendulum swung tentatively before resuming its steady rhythm, signaling the return of time's flow. The world outside resumed its motion, yet the lingering sense of otherworldly calm remained. The mysterious morning had passed, leaving behind a lingering sense of enchantment. The clock continued its faithful ticking, life carried on its predictable course, yet a part of me remained captivated by that frozen moment in time. And on rare occasions, when the light caught the mirror just so, I glimpsed that alternate version of myself existing in a suspended reality where time stood still. Perhaps in that parallel world I still wander through a realm of serene silence, discovering beauty in each frozen moment, forever intertwined with the mysteries of time and existence. Story 25, the snow whispered softly as it descended on that winter night, draping the windowsill in a cloak of velvety white. Nestled in my cherished armchair, I observed the snowflakes pirouette in the lamplight while indulging in a cup of chamomile tea. The warmth of the brew enveloped me, a stark contrast to the chill seeping through the ancient wooden window frames. The grandfather clock's steady ticking wove a hypnotic melody, akin to a lullaby, marking the passage of time. In the hush of that moment, a peculiar sight caught my eye in the window's reflection. Amongst the swirling snowflakes, a face materialized, nebulous yet possessing an otherworldly aura, as if sketched by the mist of my breath on the frosty glass. The eyes, however, held a peculiar clarity, deep, obsidian orbs fixed upon me with an uncanny familiarity. Rising from the chair, the floorboards groaned beneath my weight as I approached the window. The apparition and the reflection wavered, but an unshakable sensation of being observed lingered. The fragrance of chamomile now intermingled with a subtle hint of jasmine, a scent that stirred faint memories of a long-forgotten summer evening. Resuming my seat, my gaze continued to search for the elusive visage in the glass. The pendulum's rhythmic swing persisted, its ticking now whispering unintelligible secrets. Retrieving my weathered leather journal from the nearby shelf, I absent-mindedly thumbed through its pages, revealing a photograph nestled within. Quivering hands retrieved the faded image, a snapshot tinged with age but still discernible. Faces beamed at the camera, frozen in a moment of summer merriment. Though unfamiliar, each countenance bore a peculiar semblance of recognition. One figure, a young woman in the background, slightly blurred, gazed directly at the lens with those same profound, dark eyes mirrored in the window. My heart quickened as I scrutinized the photograph. Clad in a white floral dress, she clutched a bouquet of jasmine, her smile tender and wistful. Flipping the photo, I sought a clue in vain for a date or inscription. Yet elegant script adorned the back, a simple plea, "Don't forget me." A sudden gust rustled the curtains, though all windows remained shut. The scent of jasmine swelled, enveloping me in a gentle embrace. Eyes fluttering shut, fragmented memories stirred within. A tinkling laugh, a distant piano melody, the whisper of a white gown among garden foliage. Upon reopening my eyes, the snow cascaded in silence. The The window's reflection reverted to its mundane display, capturing only my weary reflection. Replacing the photograph within the journal, I sensed that haunting visage would accompany my slumber. Not a menacing presence, but a bittersweet melancholy, akin to a forgotten tune resurfacing. Draping myself in a cozy blanket on the sofa, the pendulum's sway persisted in its hypnotic cadence. The jasmine scent lingered in the air, fading like a receding memory as drowsiness beckoned. Drifting into sleep, I pondered the trove of forgotten memories nestled in the recesses of my mind, patiently awaiting rediscovery. Perhaps I mused, some faces are destined to linger, gentle phantoms, safeguarding memories veiled by time but not erased. As slumber beckoned, a crystalline laughter echoed in the wind, carried aloft by the snowflake's nocturnal waltz. Story 26, the rain softly tapped against the windows of my study, creating a soothing melody that harmonized with the crackling of the fireplace. Nestled in my favorite armchair, I gazed absent-mindedly at the new addition adorning the wall, an antique painting capturing an autumn landscape. Discovered in a quaint antique shop, I was drawn to its rich hues and the enigmatic aura it emitted. Despite the weather intensifying outside, the golden frame, weathered by time, shimmered in the flickering firelight, casting playful reflections on the walls. On that particular evening, as the storm whispered its presence, a peculiar occurrence captured my attention within the painting. The painted leaves appeared to sway gently, as if brushed by an unseen breeze. Initially attributing it to the shadows cast by the fire, a deeper observation revealed an undeniable alteration. The colors seemed heightened, more profound than my initial perception. The path winding through the canvas landscape seemed elongated, extending beyond its painted confines. Standing from my chair, I approached the painting. A coolness enveloped the air around it, contrasting the warmth of the fire. Running my fingers over the canvas, I discovered a texture unlike traditional oil paintings, smooth, almost silky. The scent of damp earth and wet leaves emanated from the frame, so authentic it challenged my senses. As I pondered these anomalies, movement in the upper corner of the painting seized my attention. Amidst the tree branches, something stirred, a deliberate motion hinting at a hidden presence. My heart fluttered with curiosity rather than fear as I stepped back, seeking a clearer perspective. The brushstrokes within the painting seemed to shift independently, crafting new pathways and forms in the landscape. Trees swayed subtly, as if responding to an unseen breeze. In the distance, a structure materialized from the fog, resembling a quaint stone house. The rain outside murmured softly, synchronizing with the painting's subtle movements. Retreating to the armchair, I was utterly captivated by the unfolding spectacle. The room expanded, deepened, as if the painting extended its boundaries into reality. Throughout the night, the artwork underwent a gradual metamorphosis. Autumnal hues pulsed in a mesmerizing rhythm, unveiling shades unknown to me. The distant stone house grew clearer, its chimney emitting smoke and warm light glowing from illuminated windows. I pondered if inhabitants resided within that painted abode, and whether they observed me through that enchanted window masquerading as a painting. Strangely, the notion didn't unsettle me. Instead, a tranquil sense enveloped me, as if I had unearthed a passage where reality intertwined seamlessly with fantasy. Time elapsed, and the painting unfurled its mysteries patiently. Faint figures occasionally traversed the path, their presence ephemeral as fleeting shadows. Yet each attempt to focus on these apparitions resulted in their gentle dissipation, akin to vanishing dream fragments upon waking. With the break of dawn tinting the sky in hues of pink, the painting gradually reverted to its original state. The leaves stilled, colors settled, and the distant house dissolved into morning's mist. Only the lingering fragrance of damp leaves remained, a solitary witness to the nocturnal revelation I had witnessed. Each evening since, I returned to my armchair, awaiting the painting's whims. At times it unravels its secrets, other times it remains silent like any conventional artwork. Yet I am certain a hidden world resides beyond that canvas, one that awakens when the world slumbers, solely for those patient enough to observe. Story 27. In the deep embrace of night, a symphony of whispers filled the air, harmonizing with the gentle percussion of raindrops on the rooftop. Stirring from slumber, a familiar restlessness beckoned me awake, drawing me to a peculiar sight. Bathed in the ethereal glow of moonlight filtering through the curtains, a mysterious object rested upon the nightstand, a weathered brass key, adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to dance in the dimness. Though unfamiliar to my memory, a sense of recognition stirred within me, whispering of a connection long forgotten. Cradling the key in my hand, a chill coursed through my veins, its weight far heavier than its modest form suggested. Time had etched a unique patina upon its surface, weaving a tale of untold journeys and hidden truths. As I traced the key's enigmatic design with reverent fingertips, I noticed its unconventional shape, an anomaly in the realm of keys. Smooth and unassuming, it bore no jagged teeth nor ancient grooves, its surface polished by the passage of ages. Delicate floral motifs intertwined with cryptic symbols, hinting at a language lost to time. Compelled by an inexplicable urge, I rose from my bed, guided by the key's soft, otherworldly glow that cast a soothing azure light in its wake. The house, cloaked in shadows, seemed to beckon me with newfound secrets, its once familiar corridors transformed by the veil of night. Each door I approached, I hesitantly offered the key, sensing a subtle resonance vibrating through my very core. Though it found no purchase in any lock, its presence evoked a stirring within the ancient timbers of my abode. It was within the sanctum of my study that the key's true purpose began to unfurl. A venerable bookcase, a relic passed down through generations, hummed in silent harmony with the key's pulsing glow. As I drew near, the soft luminescence intensified, casting a mesmerizing play of shadows upon the walls. Tracing the key along the bookcase's edge, a melodic hum, akin to a forgotten tune, reverberated through the room. The wood responded with a gentle tremor, as if awakening from a long slumber. In a moment suspended outside of time, an ancient ritual unfolded before me. The key, an emissary of bygone eras, sought out its kin within the heart of the bookcase. With a breathless hush, the key met the wood, and a profound sigh resonated through the room. Ripples of energy cascaded across the polished surface, revealing glimpses of a world long past faces, places, and whispers of a forgotten age. With the first light of dawn, I found myself seated at my desk, the key clasped tightly in my grasp. The morning sun dispersed the shadows, yet the echo of that mysterious encounter lingered in the air. Though the bookcase stood stoic and unchanged, a subtle shift had occurred within its ancient frame. Days turned to nights, and the key, though no longer aglow, retained its enigmatic weight, a silent guardian of secrets untold. In the quiet depths of night, a haunting melody still echoes from the bookcase, a siren's call to the key that rests within my keeping. Tempted by the allure of the unknown, I ponder the mysteries that lie dormant, locked away in silence. The key now rests within a drawer, swathed in midnight velvet, a sentinel watching over dreams and whispers of a time long gone. And as the night unfolds its mysteries, I wonder, did the key seek me out, or was it I who stumbled upon its enigmatic path? The secrets held by a key without a lock whisper softly in the stillness, inviting the curious and the bold to unravel their timeless enigma. Story 28. The gentle flicker of the candle's light painted ethereal shadows on the ancient stone walls as I descended into the depths of the cellar. Each step I took echoed with the familiar creaking of the wooden staircase, a comforting melody that had long accompanied my visits to retrieve Grandma's cherished preserves. The air enveloped me in its cool, musty embrace, carrying the earthy perfume of aged wood that whisked me back to the days of my youth. On this particular evening, a subtle shift in the atmosphere beckoned my attention. The candle flame danced erratically, unaffected by any hint of a breeze. A fine layer of dust cloaked every surface, though I had ventured here only the day prior. The elongated shadows on the walls seemed to yearn towards the darkness lurking at the stairwell's base, an eerie spectacle that gave me pause. Midway down the stairs, a peculiar sensation gripped me. The wooden shelves, typically confined to a short distance, now appeared to stretch endlessly into the abyss. The feeble light of the candle failed to penetrate their depths, creating an illusion of infinite corridor unfolding before me. The silence hung heavy, broken solely by the rhythm of my heartbeat and the distant murmur of water seeping through the stones. Driven by a curiosity that eclipsed my trepidation, I pressed on. The jars of preserves glimmered faintly in the wavering glow, their labels bearing dates of bygone eras 1980, 1960, 1940. Some were so weathered that their inscriptions had faded into obscurity. With each step, the air grew colder, saturated with the scent of damp earth intermingled with a more ancient fragrance akin to yellowed parchments. As I ventured deeper, the shelves continued their unfathomable extension, revealing walls adorned not with rough stones but intricate patterns of ancient bricks. Esoteric symbols foreign to my eyes were meticulously etched into the stone, defying the era in which the house had been constructed. Pausing before a particular shelf, my gaze fixated on a singular jar. Crafted from a dark glass that seemed to swallow light, its label bore an inexplicable date, 1820. Tremors coursed through my hands as I lifted the jar for closer inspection. In the cellar's hush, a faint whisper, devoid of words, caressed my ears, a sound akin to the fluid passage of time, akin to the rustle of ancient tomes stirred by a phantom wind. Slowly turning, I caught a fleeting glimpse of indistinct figures moving within the shadows, ephemeral memories struggling to take form. Anxiety prickling at my senses, I resolved to ascend. Yet as I pivoted towards the stairs, a disconcerting realization dawned upon me. The distance I had traversed appeared to have multiplied, the light at the staircase summit now a distant, solitary beacon in the velvety darkness. Striving to maintain composure, I ascended, methodically counting each step as one would in childhood. With each stride homeward, the shelves underwent a metamorphosis, gradually reverting to the familiar layout of the cellar I knew. The dates on the jars shifted to more recent times, and the walls reverted to their original state. The jar from 1820 remained clutched in my grasp, a tangible reassurance that the surreal experience had not been a mere figment of my imagination. Emerging into the warm glow of the kitchen, a sense of relief washed over me like a comforting embrace. Placing the enigmatic jar on the first step, I cast a final glance back into the obscure depths of the cellar. For an ephemeral moment, a spectral movement flickered within the shadows, as though time itself contorted and wavered. That night, cradling a steaming cup of tea in the kitchen's warmth, I pondered the events that had unfolded. The jar now bore a mundane label, Blackberry Jam 2023. Yet upon uncorking it, a fragrance unlike any other wafted forth, the essence of time itself, redolent with the sweetness of age, reminiscent of childhood nostalgia. Since that peculiar night, each descent into the cellar has become a contemplative journey. While the stairs remain unaltered and the shelves house their customary preserves, there lingers a tantalizing enigma, a sense that the cellar harbors untold temporal secrets. In moments of dim illumination and profound silence, I find myself poised on the cusp of discovery, pondering the infinite corridor that beckons with the promise of unveiling the mysteries where time loses its grasp on reality. Story 29. The ocean that night lay tranquil, a rare calmness enveloping its waters. I sat on the veranda of my rustic wooden abode, cocooned in a cozy woolen blanket, entranced by the soft, rhythmic melody of waves caressing the shore. The silvery glow of the full moon painted a shimmering path on the water, beckoning me to follow it into the unknown horizon. Lost in quiet contemplation, a peculiar sight captured my attention, a faint green luminescence, almost ethereal, swaying amidst the gentle waves not far from the coast. With a deliberate movement, I stood from the rocking chair, its faint protest echoing in the stillness of the night. The briny breeze tenderly brushed against my face as I descended the weathered steps. The sand underfoot retained a comforting warmth despite the late hour, guiding me towards the water's edge where the waves whispered their ancient secrets upon the land. The enigmatic green glow grew more defined. As I drew nearer, it materialized as an ancient glass bottle, its elegant elongated form cradling a yellowed parchment within. Gingerly I lifted the weighty bottle, its surface encrusted with a patina of salt, rendering it opaque in spots. The moon's gentle light filtered through the glass, casting mesmerizing reflections that danced upon its surface. The cork closure, sealed with aged black wax, bore the marks of time but remained unbroken. Upon closer inspection, the glass revealed intricate patterns of tiny crystals that sparkled like celestial bodies trapped within. Returning to the veranda, the warm glow of an oil lamp illuminated my discovery. Placing the bottle on the worn wooden table, I settled into my beloved armchair. The symphony of the sea now seemed to speak louder, as if urging me to unravel the mysteries concealed within. With deliberate care, I began to peel away the black wax seal, its delicate remnants crumbling like ancient memories. The cork, surprisingly well preserved, released a fragrance redolent of seaweed, aged ink, and a hint of something indefinable. Within the bottle, a parchment awaited, tightly rolled and bound by a faded silk ribbon of azure hue. My hands trembled imperceptibly as I untied the knot, revealing a resilient paper that defied its apparent age. Unfurling it, sepia-tinged ink adorned the page, rendering some sections nearly illegible. The script appeared familiar yet elusive, as if written in a language half remembered. The elegant handwriting bore traces of agitation, distorting some letters in a silent plea for understanding. As my gaze adjusted to the faded script, fragmented phrases emerged. Time ebbs uniquely in this realm, and the light here is ever-changing. Amongst the lines, sketches of unfamiliar constellations and lunar cycles intertwined with the text, creating an otherworldly tapestry. Yet it was a drawing at the page's bottom that captivated me, an unerring spiral seeming to shift imperceptibly when glanced at askance. As I delved deeper into the message, the oil lamp flickered erratically, casting elongated shadows that danced in synchrony with the undulating waves. The sea's symphony morphed from a gentle lullaby to a rhythmic chant, resonating in a forgotten tongue. The night air grew heavy, as though time itself had slowed to a standstill. Amidst the fading ink, the concluding paragraphs shone clearest, as if the words held a potent magic in their preservation. They spoke of a realm where the boundary between dream and reality blurred to a gossamer veil, where time flowed as fluidly as water through cupped hands. The message culminated with a chilling declaration. If these words find you, know that you too are chosen. Cast your gaze upon the sea tonight and witness its transformation. Startled, I raised my eyes from the parchment. The moon loomed larger, its reflection assuming an almost geometric form upon the water's surface. The bottle on the table emitted the same ethereal green light, its pulsing rhythm akin to a slumbering heartbeat. Carefully re-rolling the message, I nestled it back within the bottle, leaving the cork unsealed. Peering towards the horizon, I pondered if others had stumbled upon similar relics, if they too had succumbed to the sea's silent beckoning. The night drifted on serenely, yet an ineffable change lingered in the air. Whether it was the stars' reflection upon the water or a newfound perception within me, I could not discern. I remained upon the veranda till daybreak, listening to the sea murmur its age-old secrets. The bottle sat upon the table, its emerald glow waning with the encroaching daylight. The full comprehension of the message eluded me, yet I sensed a profound shift within. On nights of the full moon, a spectral green light still dances upon the waves, a reminder of mysteries best left undisturbed in the ocean's depths. Story 30, night had draped the ancient countryside abode in a cloak of profound serenity. Nestled in my cherished armchair beside the crackling fireplace, I observed the shadows waltz on the walls while the flames leisurely devoured the logs. The warmth embraced me like a snug blanket, as beyond the walls, the autumn breeze tenderly rustled the tree leaves. Amid this moment of utter tranquility, a peculiar sound caught my attention, a crystalline, childlike giggle drifting from the upper floor of the house. A laughter that seemed woven from silver bells. Pausing to listen, I allowed the sound to intertwine with the fire's crackle. It held no menace. On the contrary, it was a joyful laughter, almost melodic. Yet I had dwelled alone in this dwelling for over 2 decades, never hosting children. Curiosity meandered through me like a gentle stream, gradually dispelling the drowsiness that had nearly overtaken me. I arose from the armchair with deliberate movements, relishing the sensation when my feet met the vintage Persian rug. The floorboards whispered softly as I made my way towards the staircase. The glow from the candles flickering in the living room cast a welcoming ambience, casting my silhouette on the walls in a silent ballet. Ascending the stairs, I sensed the air growing cooler with each step. It was not a harsh cold, but rather a caress on the skin, akin to the breeze near the seaside. The laughter echoed once more, closer this time, emanating from the guest room. A room seldom used, adorned with antique furniture draped in pale sheets swaying gently, stirred by an unseen draft. The door stood slightly ajar, allowing a silvery light to filter through, distinct from any other light in the house. Not moonlight, too warm for that, nor from electric lamps. It possessed a quality that pulsed softly, akin to a quiet heartbeat. Pushing the door, the ancient wood hummed a familiar tune. The room unfolded before me, bathed in that peculiar luminescence. The draped furniture formed comforting, nebulous shapes resembling clouds in a clear sky. And there, perched on the windowsill, I beheld something that stole my breath, not a distinct form, but rather a play of light and shadow that seemed to mimic a child. The laughter resonated once more, this time distinctly originating from that radiant presence. I harbored no fear, only a profound sense of awe. The light child seemed to toy with the beams it emitted, crafting luminous patterns on the walls as if painting with light itself. I approached cautiously, and with each step, the room's temperature oscillated gently between cool and warm, like waves lapping at the shore. Drawing nearer, I discerned a familiarity in the figure. In its fluid motions, I recognized echoes of the gestures I made as a child while playing alone in my room. The realization washed over me with the sweetness of a forgotten memory. That laughter, so pure and crystalline, belonged to my childhood self. Time seemed to stretch as I observed that surreal spectacle. The light child continued its silent play, occasionally punctuated by that melodious laughter that now reverberated like a whisper from the past. I refrained from speaking or engaging, afraid to rupture the spell of tranquility and nostalgia. Gradually, the silvery light began to wane, akin to the sun setting on a winter eve. The child's form grew increasingly ethereal until naught remained but a faint glow. The final laughter I heard was almost a murmur, a tender farewell before dissipating into darkness. I lingered in the room for what felt like an eternity, enfolded in a serene stillness. The swaying sheets on the furniture stilled, and the air reverted to its usual temperature. Yet something had shifted. The guest room, once a repository for dusty memories, now harbored a precious enigma. Returning to my armchair by the hearth, where the fire smoldered softly, I settled amidst the cushions, realizing I would never truly comprehend the events of that night. Was it a dream, a recollection, or perchance something deeper, a missive from the past that chose to manifest through a child's laughter in the shadows? Since that night, whenever I passed by the guest room, I paused to listen. On the stillest nights, I sometimes catch the faint echo of that crystalline laughter, akin to a gentle lullaby guiding me into slumber. And with a smile, I allow the mystery to linger, a sweet secret shared between me and the child who laughs in the darkness. Story 31, the soft rustle of paper sliding through my fingers filled the attic with a gentle echo, harmonizing with the serene silence of the space. A warm glow from the setting sun filtered through a small, dusty window, painting the air with shimmering golden beams that danced gracefully in the stillness. Amidst the relics of time, I delved into the realm of old family documents, each whispering tales of bygone days. There, amidst the faded parchment, I stumbled upon a treasure, a yellowed envelope sealed with weathered red wax. My name, elegantly inscribed on the rough surface, beckoned to me in a script unfamiliar yet captivating. With a sigh, I settled into an ancient wooden chair, its time-worn frame protesting softly under my weight. The scent of history enveloped me, a blend of aged books and weathered wood, carried on a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves of a majestic tree outside the attic window. Intrigued, I held the mysterious envelope, its weight hinting at secrets beyond mere words. Slowly, I broke the seal, the brittle wax protesting with a satisfying crack that resonated in the quiet room. Unfolding the delicate pages within, as thin as veils, I discovered a narrative woven in the same elegant handwriting that graced the envelope. The date atop the parchment beckoned from 50 years past, a time long before my own existence. The opening lines seized my attention with a gentle yet firm grip, "My dear future grandchild." As I immersed myself in the letter, a subtle dimming of the room's light went unnoticed, for the words on the pages seemed to emit a soft, ethereal glow of their own. The tale unfurled, painting a portrait of a woman, my grandmother, a stranger in blood but kin in spirit. She spoke of a unique gift that flowed through our family's veins, a rare ability that manifested under the cloak of specific celestial alignments. On nights when the moon reigned full and the wind whispered from the north, some among us could glimpse beyond the veil of time, albeit in blurred reflections and elusive sensations. In her delicate script, my grandmother recounted how she had foreseen my presence, envisioned me in this very attic, deciphering her timeless words. A shiver traced a path down my spine as I journeyed further into her intimate narrative. She detailed her endeavors to harness this gift, to shield our kin through turbulent tides, yet every peek into the tapestry of fate exacted a toll on her very essence. In the hush of the attic, time surrendered its hold, allowing shadows to waltz with memories etched in those yellowed pages. The letter spun a tale of events past and those yet to unfold in my own life, a tapestry woven with threads of destiny and choice. With each passing moment, the handwriting subtly shifted, the strokes growing more hesitant, as if each word demanded a greater sacrifice of effort. The final page beckoned, a veil between past and present thinning with each passing heartbeat. My grandmother's words, tinged with a sense of urgency, spoke of a pivotal crossroads awaiting me, a moment when the dormant gift within me would stir from slumber. I paused, lifting my gaze to the window where the night had draped its velvet cloak and the full moon peeked through veils of cloud. A gust of wind caressed the glass, carrying the scent of rain on its breath. Returning to the letter's conclusion, her parting words shimmered as if freshly penned. When you hear the call, you will know what to do. The gift is not a burden but a legacy. As I have done for you, so must you do for the next in line. With care, I folded the pages, cradling them back into the embrace of the envelope. The wind outside grew insistent, coaxing the ancient floorboards to a gentle creak. Standing and approaching the window, my reflection melded with the moon's glow, creating a fleeting illusion that gave me pause. In that ephemeral moment, a spectral figure, an elderly woman with a serene smile, overlapped with my own reflection. Blinking, she vanished, leaving behind on the desk by the window a blank sheet of paper and a pen. Seated once more, the moon casting its silver radiance upon the room, I surrendered to the silent whispers of the wind from the north. With pen in hand, I began to inscribe, "My dear future grandchild." Story 32. Winter nights hold a peculiar power over me, especially when the fog weaves its quiet spell around everything. In my cozy study, I was cocooned in the soft embrace of a wool blanket, watching as the world outside dissolved into a shimmering mist through the window. The gentle glow of the lamp on my desk cast comforting shadows on the walls adorned with rows of books. In the midst of this ethereal scene, a peculiar sight caught my eye in the glass reflection, a small, dark wooden box, intricately carved with ever-shifting patterns. It felt unfamiliar, yet strangely known. Perched on the desk's edge, it appeared as though it had always belonged there. The grain of the wood seemed to pulse faintly in the dim light, as if harboring a life within. Standing up, the blanket slid to the floor with a whisper, and the wooden floorboards murmured beneath my steps as I drew closer to the enigmatic box. A scent of aged wood and beeswax wafted to me, stirring up forgotten memories from my childhood. My fingertips grazed the warm surface of the box, its carvings whispering tales that morphed with each passing glance, an ever-changing narrative of moonlit forests, stormy seas, and starlit skies. Seated once more, bathed in the lamp's glow, I scrutinized every detail of this mysterious object. A disquieting realization dawned upon me. The box, with its shifting carvings, had been a recurring presence in my dreams lately. It had manifested in various forms, yet always carrying the same enigmatic aura that now permeated the room. In the hush of the night, the grandfather clock's ticking seemed to slow, and the shadows danced upon the walls in intricate patterns. Taking the box in hand, its weight belied its size, hinting at hidden significance within. The carvings on the lid converged gradually, forming an unfamiliar pattern that seemed to react to my touch, vibrating subtly under my fingers. As I delved deeper, a melodic hum emanated from within the box, a lullaby from a distant memory. Unexpected weariness washed over me, and the lamp's light pulsed in harmony with the hypnotic melody. Hours later, I awoke at the desk, the fog outside dispersed to reveal a star-spangled sky. The box had vanished, leaving behind a ghostly imprint on the wooden surface, as though it had always rested there. Puzzled, I noticed a faint carving on the back of my hand, reminiscent of the box's patterns, softly aglow in the dimness. Since that mysterious night, the box has continued to visit me in my dreams, evolving in its attempts to communicate a message beyond my grasp. Each morning, the carving on my hand subtly transforms, hinting at a message yet unveiled, a puzzle awaiting completion. I ponder if others share this surreal connection to the box in their dreams, carrying invisible symbols of a mystery that unfolds solely in the realm of slumber. The line between reality and dreams blurs, the box emerging as a conduit bridging two worlds that have always been intertwined more closely than we realize. Now, as I pen these words, the scent of beeswax lingers in the air, a whisper of the box's presence beckoning me to the realm of dreams where new revelations await. Story 33. The night was draped in a profound stillness, broken only by the rhythmic melody of the train wheels caressing the tracks. I found myself nestled in the final carriage, enveloped in a gentle glow that emanated from the delicate fixtures dangling above. The air held a comforting warmth, and the ceaseless motion of the train wove a spell of hypnotic tranquility. Peering through the window, I watched as the mist pirouetted lazily in the darkness, morphing into fleeting silhouettes that dissolved into the night's embrace. In that solitary carriage, I believed myself to be the sole passenger, lost in contemplation. Yet an enigmatic presence seemed to linger, a phantom merging with my reflection on the window pane, casting a veil of mystery upon the scene. The symphony of the rails whispered tales of yore, a mechanical lullaby beckoning me to the realm of dreams. It was in that moment of serene reverie that a peculiar anomaly caught my eye. In the glass, a shadow loomed behind me, a specter occupying a few rows distant. Bewildered, for I had perceived no one embark, yet there they sat, an elusive figure veiled in obscurity. The train pressed on, a vessel traversing the nocturnal expanse, and the rhythmic cadence of the wheels murmured ancient secrets into the ether. With bated breath, I turned, cautious not to betray my curiosity. The carriage, bathed in amber light, cast elongated shadows across vacant seats, and there it sat, the mysterious silhouette, shrouded in a cloak of darkness. Their countenance remained obscured beneath a wide-brimmed hat, a visage concealed in the veil of night. Time appeared to falter as I beheld that silent sentinel, their presence weaving a tapestry of enigmatic nostalgia. The atmosphere grew heavy with memories untold, whispers of bygone eras lingering in the air. Motionless, voiceless, the enigmatic voyager sat as though an indelible part of the train's essence. Deliberately I rose, feigning a casual amble towards the rear of the carriage, an unspoken desire to unravel the enigma that gripped me. Drawing near to the enigmatic figure, I discerned that their cloak seemed to defy the light, absorbing every gleam that dared to caress its fabric. An icy chill pervaded the space surrounding them, a delicate fragrance of lavender and aged manuscripts wafting through the air. Passing the seat occupied by the spectral passenger, I felt time halt momentarily, the distant hum of the rails fading into a distant echo. It was then that I espied a disquieting truth beneath the veil of darkness. There lay no perceptible stir of breath. Reaching the end of the carriage, I hesitated, torn between advancing to the next compartment or retracing my steps. The corridor stretched infinitely, the soft illumination creating hypnotic arabesques upon the floor. Upon glancing back, the seat once inhabited by the enigmatic figure stood vacant. In its stead, an antiquated train ticket lay, its edges tinged with the patina of time. Quivering, I retrieved the ticket, its date marking a half-century past, identical to the present night. Still warm to the touch, as though recently held, it whispered of an ephemeral encounter beyond comprehension. Returning to my seat, the train resumed its nocturnal odyssey, the melodic cadence of the wheels a solace once more. Beyond the mist-draped window, ethereal forms seemed to stride alongside the train, phantoms in silent procession. As weariness tiptoed upon my senses, I pondered the countless souls who might have chanced upon the mysterious passenger aboard the final train of twilight. The ticket I clutched bore witness to the surreal rendezvous, its substance waning like a dream upon waking. Through the night's veil, the train bore its enigmatic cargo, visible and unseen, ferrying secrets through the dim-lit carriages. Drifting into slumber, a wisp of lavender and the echo of retreating footsteps lingered in the air, a spectral farewell as the train journeyed into the realm of dreams. Story 34. The soft, rhythmic tap of raindrops against my bedroom window whispered a soothing melody as the night unfolded its mysteries. Nestled in my bed, I teetered on the edge between consciousness and dreams, enveloped by the gentle ambience of the rainy night. Amidst the tranquil symphony of the rain, a faint, steady hum crept into the air, weaving its way through the droplets' dance. Initially, I brushed it off as a mere echo of passing traffic from the nearby road. Yet, as moments slipped by, the persistent sound clung to the shadows of the night, a persistent thrum of a car engine humming in the near distance. The digital clock beside me cast a soft crimson hue across the room, signaling the impending arrival of midnight. Intrigued by the enigmatic hum, I found myself drawn to the window, pulled by an unexplainable curiosity that beckoned me to unveil the source of the nocturnal melody. Peering through the rain-kissed glass, I discerned a dark sedan stationed across the street, shrouded in the veil of the night. Its headlights lay dormant, but a subtle azure glow emanated from within, casting a mystical aura that intertwined with the misty whispers of the rain. Wisps of exhaust spiraled into the damp air, adding an ethereal essence to the scene that seemed frozen in time. No movement stirred from within the vehicle, no silhouette graced its obscured windows. Yet the ceaseless purr of the engine persisted, a paradoxical presence that both comforted and unsettled the nocturnal stillness. The raindrops cascading under the flickering street lamp painted transient patterns on the car's sleek exterior, transforming it into a fluid silhouette amidst the obsidian night. My breath created a misty veil on the window as I observed, framing the mysterious vehicle in a haze of wonder. Details unfolded before me with dreamlike clarity, the glistening beads of rain on its surface, the intertwining dance of mist and exhaust forming fleeting spectacles that dissolved into the night. Engulfed in a trance, questions swirled in my mind like wisps of smoke in the night air. Who lingered within the idling car at this unearthly hour? Why had this unremarkable street become the stage for such a mysterious vigil? In response to my silent queries, the engine's melody shifted, its timbre descending to a deeper resonance that resonated in the nocturnal air. A subtle vibration hummed through the atmosphere, a phantom echo that transcended mere sound. Glancing at the fogged windows that concealed the car's interior, a sense of presence pervaded their opacity, hinting at a hidden observer within. A primal urge nudged me towards my phone, contemplating whether to summon help the authorities, perhaps, although the nature of any potential transgression eluded my grasp. Rational explanations surfaced in my mind: a clandestine rendezvous, a weary traveler seeking respite, a neighbor preparing for a late-night journey. Yet these feeble justifications crumbled against the weight of the uncanny tableau before me. Time ebbed and flowed in a surreal cadence as I stood transfixed by the window. The rain's gentle serenade persisted, and the enigmatic car maintained its silent vigil. Minute transformations unfolded, condensation patterns shifting on the windows, the ethereal shapes of exhaust clouds morphing with the breeze. Despite these subtle changes, the vehicle remained a static enigma, a frozen fragment of time brought to fleeting life. As weariness cloaked my senses, I reluctantly tore my gaze from the window, retracing my steps towards the comfort of my bed. Yet an invisible force compelled me to cast one final glance at the mysterious sedan. There it remained, steadfast in its vigil, the engine's hum now an eerie lullaby that intertwined with the rain's whispered melody. Nestled beneath my covers, the distant thrum permeated the walls, enveloping me in a hypnotic embrace as sleep beckoned. In the twilight realm between wakefulness and slumber, a lingering image of the fogged windows haunted my thoughts, concealing secrets unknown to the waking world. With dawn's gentle light seeping through the horizon, I hastened to the window, half expecting the street to be devoid of the enigmatic car, dismissing the night's events as mere phantoms of the mind. To my astonishment, clear tire tracks imprinted the wet pavement, a tangible trace of the car's presence. Beside them, a pool of water glistened in the morning light, tinged with a luminous sheen that hinted at hidden wonders beneath the surface. The mysterious sedan had vanished with the night, leaving behind a whisper of intrigue that lingered in the rain-soaked air. On quiet, rainy nights when the world cloaked itself in silence, a spectral echo of an idling engine occasionally drifted into the night. As I lay awake, listening to the nocturnal symphony, I pondered how many others shared in this elusive vigil, peering through rain-streaked windows, awaiting a glimpse of the enigmatic entities that lurked behind the veiled glass panes of the night. Story 35. The hotel corridor basked in a soft golden glow, filtered through amber-hued glass lampshades. It was the late hours of the night, and the stillness was broken only by the gentle hum of air conditioners. I made my way towards the elevator, the wheels of my suitcase gliding silently over the deep burgundy carpet. The weariness from a long day of business obligations weighed heavily on my shoulders. Pressing the elevator button, I stood there, gazing at my blurred reflection on the metallic doors. The digital numbers above the elevator ticked slowly. 654. A soft green light from the display cast a soothing glow on the walls. As the doors opened with a faint chime, I stepped into the compact space adorned with mirrors and dark wood. My destination was the 7th floor, the pinnacle. I pressed the button and leaned back against the wall, closing my eyes briefly. The elevator began its ascent with a seamless, rhythmic motion. The mechanical sounds were barely audible, akin to a deep, steady breath. When I opened my eyes again, a peculiar sight greeted me in the mirror's reflection opposite. It seemed as though my image lagged slightly behind my movements, as if mimicking me with a fraction of delay. Shaking off the odd sensation, I attributed it to fatigue. The elevator glided to a halt, and the doors slid open. Stepping into the corridor, a sense of unease crept in. The carpet was no longer burgundy, but a deep forest green, and the wall lamps took on an antique charm with an unfamiliar Art Deco flair. Checking the display, it confirmed I was on the 7th floor, yet everything felt different. The hallway appeared elongated, narrower, and the air carried a unique scent reminiscent of old tomes and aged timber. The room numbers puzzled me. 7A, 7B, 7C, deviating from the standard numerals I had seen during booking. Turning back towards the elevator, I found the doors shut tight. Pressing the call button yielded no response. The display above remained blank, as if the elevator had vanished into thin air. The silence grew denser, almost palpable. Slowly, I ventured down the hallway, attempting to make sense of my surroundings. The lights seemed to pulse gently, as if alive. Each door I passed appeared identical, yet exuded a distinct aura, hinting at a hidden tale behind the dark wood facade. At the hallway's end, a figure sat in an antique armchair caught my eye. An elderly doorman in a vintage uniform, his snow-white hair impeccably styled, glanced up from his book with a kind smile. "Are you lost?" he inquired in a soothing, familiar tone, as though awaiting my arrival. "I believe I am," I admitted. "I was heading to the 7th floor, but this seems—" "Ah, but this is indeed the 7th floor," he interjected with a mysterious grin. "Just not the one you were seeking. You see, this elevator possesses a quirk. It transports weary travelers where they need to be, not necessarily where they think they ought to go." Surveying the surroundings more attentively, I noticed intricate details previously overlooked. The gilded frames held monochrome photographs of bygone eras, and the clock on the wall displayed an impossible time, its hands moving in reverse. "Fret not," the doorman reassured, closing his book gently. "The elevator will return when the moment aligns. Meanwhile, why don't you rest? Time is but a fleeting concept here." Nestled in the armchair beside him, I felt the weariness dissipate slowly. The once eerie silence now cradled me in a warm embrace, comforting and serene. The doorman resumed his reading, and I found myself entranced by the shadows dancing on the walls, forming mesmerizing patterns. Time seemed to lose its significance. Minutes melded into hours, or perhaps hours into mere moments. The backward ticking of the clock created a tranquil melody, akin to a lullaby. Eventually, the familiar chime of the elevator broke the reverie. "Ah," the doorman remarked without looking up from his book. I believe it is time for you to return to your designated floor. Rising to my feet, a peculiar sense of rejuvenation washed over me. Making my way back towards the elevator, I turned to express my gratitude to the doorman, only to find the armchair empty. His abandoned book lay on the armrest, its weathered leather cover gleaming faintly in the soft illumination. The elevator doors glided open noiselessly. Stepping inside, this time the journey was swift. Upon exiting, I found myself back in the familiar corridor with the burgundy carpet and contemporary wall fixtures. Reaching my room, I inserted the key into the lock. Before entering, I cast a final glance towards the elevator. The digital display flickered momentarily, showcasing not a numeral but an unfamiliar symbol. Just as swiftly, it returned to normal, displaying a simple 7. Since that peculiar night, whenever I ride an elevator in a hotel, I ponder if it will whisk me to my intended destination or where I truly need to be. And on the quietest of nights, a faint rustle of pages from an ancient tome, turned by unseen hands, echoes in a realm existing between floors. Story 36. The weariness of a long day clung to me as I entered my study. The warm glow of the desk lamp cast soft shadows around the room, where bookshelves stood like sentinels holding secrets within their tomes. The scent of aged paper and ink wafted through the air, embracing me in a cocoon of familiarity as I settled into my worn leather armchair. My eyes fell upon my old diary resting on the desk, a cherished gift from my grandmother. Its weathered leather cover and yellowed pages held the echoes of my innermost thoughts, but today something was different. The last page I had written was no longer blank. Delicate script, foreign to my own, adorned the paper with words I did not recall penning. The ink appeared fresh, as if the writer had just set down their quill. Intrigued, I leaned in, my breath slowing as I read. The words painted a vivid scene of an autumn evening, mirroring the very room I found myself in. Rain tapped gently against the window, a soothing rhythm that blended with the rustle of phantom pages. The lamp flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to move with a will of their own. As I read on, each word seemed to anticipate my next action. Curiosity urged him to turn the page, the script beckoned, and as if by some unseen force, my hand obeyed. A jolt of surprise coursed through me as new words materialized before my eyes, as though an invisible hand guided the pen. The narrative described my every sensation, the warmth of the lamp, the heaviness of my breath, the chill down my spine with eerie accuracy. Unable to tear myself away, I rose from my chair, transfixed by the unfolding mystery. The script now detailed books on the shelves, titles unfamiliar yet tangible in their presence. Time seemed to waver as I sat back down, the room enveloping me in a cocoon of isolation. The rain outside intensified, cocooning me in a world of my own. Closing my eyes, I let the rain's lullaby carry me away. When I opened them, the diary had transformed. Personal memories, long buried, resurfaced in intimate detail. Each word felt like a whispered secret, a shared moment between the diary and me. Approaching the desk once more, I felt a sense of communion with the book. The narrative shifted from storytelling to conversation, as if the diary sought to unlock hidden chambers of my past. With each passing moment, a deeper understanding unfurled, mingling curiosity with tranquility. As midnight neared, I realized I had been ensnared in this silent exchange for hours. The final words appeared. Some mysteries don't need solving to be understood. Closing the diary gently, I traced the leather cover, feeling a shift within myself. The rain outside had become a companion, a backdrop to the enigma that had unfolded within these pages. Preparing for sleep, I stole a final glance at the study. The diary lay innocently on the desk, yet its pages held a world of revelations. Something had shifted within me, a subtle awakening to truths left unspoken. Night draped the study in a shroud of quiet, the lamp casting its amber glow as a silent sentinel. Some mysteries, I realized as I closed the door, were meant to linger, their answers hidden in the whispers of the night. And so I embraced the enigma, knowing that some secrets were more profound when left unsolved. Story 37. The autumn mist enveloped the streets like a soft, gray blanket, casting a mysterious haze over the night. A long work shift had left me weary as I made my way home, the streetlights appearing as fuzzy halos in the fog. It was then that I noticed them, a pair of headlights trailing behind me, unwavering in their distance. A faint whisper in my mind nudged me to pay closer attention to the peculiar symmetry of that car's movements. The hum of its engine behind me felt almost like a steady breath, synchronized with my own journey. Whether I slowed down or sped up, the car mirrored my every move with eerie precision. Through the misty veil of the rearview mirror, I could only glimpse a shadowy figure, a sedan looming like a silent sentinel with its vigilant headlights fixed on me. As I navigated the winding roads of the neighborhood, the serene houses stood in quiet repose, a stark contrast to the growing unease in my chest. Curiosity led me to diverge from my usual route, extending my path to test the unwavering follower. To the backdrop of raindrops tapping on the windshield, a soothing melody emerged, a paradoxical backdrop to the unfolding mystery. Turning down side streets and alleys, the car remained a constant companion, a spectral partner in an enigmatic dance. Its headlights, like twin beacons, never strayed too close or too far, a silent agreement binding us in this nocturnal reverie. The neighborhood slumbered on, oblivious to our nocturnal ballet under the shroud of night. At a red light, a fleeting glimpse through the rain-splattered glass revealed a motionless figure in the driver's seat of the pursuing vehicle, an enigmatic presence that sent shivers down my spine. When I finally decided to retreat homeward, the car lingered faithfully in my wake, a ghostly reminder of our strange encounter. Parking in my driveway, the silence of the night enveloped me, broken only by the gentle patter of rain on the car roof and the steady drum of my own heartbeat. Through the rearview mirror, the car remained stationed a few yards away, its headlights casting an ethereal glow in the darkness. Minutes stretched like hours as I watched until the lights dimmed into obscurity. Summoning courage, I stepped out into the rain, shielding myself with a jacket as I turned to face the lingering presence. Yet to my bewilderment, the street lay deserted, devoid of any trace of the persistent pursuer. Had it been a figment of my imagination, a phantom of the night? Since that fateful evening, a veil of unease descends upon me whenever I drive through the twilight hours. In the thick fog, I find myself glancing more frequently at the rearview mirror, half expecting to glimpse those familiar headlights in the distance, a patient specter waiting in the shadows. Is the car still out there, trailing another unsuspecting traveler, or does it bide its time, ready to resume our nocturnal waltz through the city's quiet streets once more?